moment. Bring that back to links and bring up the camera there in Winona once again. So again, we're watching maybe some broad rotation on this storm there just northeast of Winona. What I'm looking at again is this dark cloud. We're only looking toward a dark cloud here. I'm out as far as the camera will go, so we can't take it any farther out. I'm looking toward the northeast, so we should have an angle into this. If it's doing something, we should have an angle on it. And again, the North Mississippi storm chasers are going to be on this storm as well. Next hour, what time are we at? We are at 4 o'clock. We're kind of in the peak time frame. This is going to do some tornado sort of storms by themselves, not just trying to spin something up on a line. This is the time period where that's most likely. So tornado watch continues again for Carroll County, where I mentioned that a moment ago, but no official warnings or anything on this storm. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning up here for a storm that has less rotation up closer to Helena, Arkansas, and a new severe thunderstorm warning issued within the last couple of moments here up closer to the Holly Springs area. So let's come to Holly Springs up here toward Mack and Attaway and Marshall, in Benton and Tippah counties, all under a severe thunderstorm warning till 4:45 p.m. Hail, wind, the main impacts on this. Our discussion with the National Weather Service there, just kind of looking at that. Just within the last few minutes, they show maybe 1 inch hail on that. But again, that's luckily still a maybe situation. We can dig into that using our True Shield Roofing Hail Finder, our hail track. And I'm not really showing any hail on that as well. So I would say the strong winds, probably the main impact on this. And if I get rid of the lightning for just a moment here, there are a couple little areas where I can argue maybe some very, very broad rotation on this, but I'm not seeing anything too terribly bad. We'll get your storm track on it. Nonetheless, we'll go back to the precipitation mode in case something changed this storm here. So tracking kind of that just east of Holly Springs, we're going about 35 to 40 miles per hour. That eventually gets it closer to Collegiate there toward the end of the track. But in the near term, Higdon, Mount Pleasant, Rossville, Junction, Sladen 414 for you, Lamar 420, looking toward Ashland 428, Michigan City about 431 as it moves in from the west. Go ahead and change this to where we see locations a little farther downstream. And so by that, we would have a Grand Junction 440, Faulkner about 450, 504 there for Bolivar, Tennessee at 505. This is Doppler radar indicated rotation on this, and nothing more than that at this point here. We should have a camera shot of this from down in the Oxford area, which is kind of in and amongst a lot of heavy rainfall. Our Phoenix Building Solutions camera there coming in 70 for that dew point, so still a decent amount of fuel available at that spot there. Going back to Winona here for a moment. Actually, before we go to Winona, we'll go to Crenshaw, look at our other severe thunderstorm warning that's kind of in and around that area. Approaching the Crenshaw area, we show some, again, dark clouds. That's all we're seeing on this, not seeing anything more than that at this moment. Our Crenshaw camera, double checking our angle on the direction we're looking. Once that loads in here in a minute. Perhaps. There we go. That one, the controls are coming up really slow on this one for the moment. Looking back again west, so should have a good angle into this there. As we look back toward the west, you see some lightning with this, not nonstop lightning, but some lightning with this back there on the severe thunderstorm warning effect until 4:30 p.m. We have had no reports to this point. That's not to say we don't see additional reports going forward. Clear that off of our camera here. So that is storm number, I guess, 2 or something there. We'll say this, more of these storms back here toward Tunica is starting to show a little bit of rotation. That storm there just kind of north of Tunica. Let's clear off our track. Let's clear off our cameras. We might need to swing that camera. We're looking through too much rain that we wouldn't be able to see it. But right here, we're near Hollywood. A little bit more rotation showing up on there. Let's check out our camera or our radar site from the Memphis Tower Doppler Weather Radar. Still showing that rotation there as well. But I'm going to go back to the radar out of the Memphis Weather Service office. Let's get a storm track on that just in case. And the question is whether or not this one near Holly Springs is about to think about doing the same thing. Gabe, I'm going to send you over to Chroma. I'm going to let you track those two things. I need to pull up a secondary radar that I can't show on the air, but I can look at off of the air. So I'm going to send it over to you for a moment so that you can put storm tracks on both of those.
Yeah, so we continue to assess that line, and one thing I was reading back behind the scenes was the mesoscale analysis, basically talking about the ingredients that are overhead, and we still have what they would call medium to high amount of energy here in North Mississippi, and you're pairing that with some of the shear. They are expecting more of an intensification to take place here in the next few moments across the North Mississippi area. Makes sense with that tornado watch already in place. So let's specifically look at, let me put this in motion here real quick. And as those have moved across the area, with this cell back to the
storm tracks, if we could, specifically on it. Get the storm track on that Tunica storm and another one on the Holly Springs, if we could.
Okay.
And then we'll bob south and get the Winona storm.
Sounds good. Okay, let's put it on that. And what did you say the speed was on it?
About 40.
40. Okay, so let's go ahead and put a 40-mile-an-hour track, and we're going to do it on this entire line right here. So putting on that latest one, there you go right there. And it's continuing to move in that northeast direction. As I draw that out, basically, you're going to see these intensify a bit more, so I'm going to try and put it along that leading edge right there where we expect it to get a little bit stronger. And so as we take it about 40 miles an hour, you can see that we have several towns in there. Let me try to clean this up a little bit as well so we can kind of get a few more towns listed in there. So labeling right there, Hernando closer to about 417, Coldwater 420, Como 420 as well, Senatobia 420, Germantown 430, 433, Olive Branch, Byhalia 442, the Collierville area 447, and on there towards the north and east beyond that point. So specifically looking at that area of rotation, we're Pritchard by about 417, Green River 420, Cub Lake 427, Kelly's Crossing 429, Pleasant Hill 431, Buena Vista Lakes 437, Robinson Gin 437, Wilco Estates 440, Love 441, and Hernando closer to 440 as well. Now that's the one back there towards Tunica, but as we look at that area of rotation out ahead of it, more towards the Holly Springs area, it's actually going to go a bit more north. But you can see based off of that track, we're in the Red Banks area right now. Mahone 417, Mac 420, Atway 426, Hudsonville 429, Lamar 435, 439 there towards Snow Lake Shore. So those are the two areas of rotation that we're looking at right now. Let me actually, behind the scenes, make sure that that rotation hasn't intensified. It still looks broad right now. I do want to look down south more towards Winona and Montgomery County. We are going to have to swap.
Tornado, but weird things sometimes happen. I do think that there's probably more going on here than meets the eye. Looking at a high resolution, but just a terrible radar to show on the air based out of the Delta. You know, I had what looked like I might have had a little hook on this storm back here toward Charleston a couple of scans ago that didn't show up, but did with kind of this more isolated radar there. So just kind of looking at what we have seen. I think that there's still a little more rotation than maybe what some of these thunderstorms look like initially here on radar. So I don't know that it's enough to produce tornadoes. Hopefully it is not. But certainly that tells us that we've got still a few more hours to fight through here before we're all done. Looking forward. Appreciate that, Gabe. Let's go ahead and reset things here for folks at home, give you kind of an overview of where things stand. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather. Current time is 4:17 p.m. And what you need to know at this point is this. If I pull off the radar data, I'm going to pull all the radar data off, put just watches on here, mornings for a moment. All the counties in blue are under a tornado watch, that in effect until 10 p.m. We expect that we have a batch of thunderstorms coming through. After that comes through, a few storms are possible. I'm not terribly impressed by what we're thinking on any kind of secondary round here. New severe thunderstorm watches, though, have been issued for Marion County, Alabama, Lamar, Franklin, and Pickens County, Alabama until 11 p.m. Why do they have a severe thunderstorm watch and yet Mississippi has a tornado watch? It's a non-zero chance for tornadoes. And just from a messaging standpoint, if we said, hey, you know, you have a severe thunderstorm watch and a tornado comes, you're like, well, why wasn't a tornado watch? The reality is that severe thunderstorms can and sometimes do produce tornadoes, so it'd be perfectly valid. But because that is a little bit of a messaging nightmare, because there is a tornado threat that is greater on the Mississippi side versus the Alabama side, and certainly the western portion of Mississippi most likely, that's where this tornado watch comes into play. That's why we have a tornado watch in effect for those locations that we've been talking about here. Our severe weather risk should diminish the farther east that storms move, and we do expect, again, we will have that limited chance to possibly produce a tornado. Now, it is not impossible. I know I've got a lot of colors on here, so I'll try to pull some of the other colors off. It's not impossible that a tornado could become strong. That's not what I think the main headline is. And admittedly, this event has once again underperformed expectations. And hopefully that continues to be the case. The damaging wind threat probably is the greater threat, and the potential for us to see significant wind gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour remains one of the main concerns. But we have not seen that very well advertised super strong wind gusts come to fruition to this point. And maybe we'll get lucky enough all the way through this that's how this plays out as well. I would absolutely prefer that to be the case. Large hail potential still out of some of these thunderstorms. Our True Shield roofing, significant hail risk does show the northwest part of the state, most likely locations to see that. So as things stand at this time here, and I'll put again our warnings back on the map there. We do have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings and a few other thunderstorms that have rotation that we are watching. On the wider scale, though, there are additional thunderstorms way back into Oklahoma, where we have pretty consistently regenerated storms over and over again the last few days here. Those thunderstorms will probably be on an angle. They stay a little bit south of us, but late tonight, that's again an additional chance, a threat for some active and severe weather. This is probably not going to fill all the way in between. That's one of the things Gabe is looking at behind the scenes here at some of our latest projections, is whether or not that'll be the case as we're kind of refining the forecast. But this initial wave here to this point has been underperforming. Well, actually, I would say the initial wave has performed about like we expected, where maybe we would see something. There's no guarantees. So that's how things kind of on the overview stand. So the next question that becomes the obvious question that everyone always wants to know about is, what about XYZ location, right? I'm not at a point where we can really eliminate anybody from the tornado threat. That's why you're under the tornado watch. We are at a point where there are some of these storms that look a little bit more impressive than others. As Gabe has been talking about, we have this storm that's kind of consistently had some rotation down here close to Winona. I mean, you can see where my mouse is, and I'm moving that on the screen there. That one's been pretty consistent, showing up there. I don't have a whole lot south of that, though. I have one there, I guess, in northwest Madison County, or northeast Madison County. Maybe has a little broad rotation with that there, depending on what wind we look at. But that's not super duper impressive, thankfully. So we got the Montgomery County one, and then these storms more likely produce some wind up north. It's just the persistent nature of this one is one that bears watching. But you look at the precipitation mode, and it just is rather unimpressive here. You know, we do have some cameras that we're looking to monitor this with, but I'm going to get you a storm track on it, and we're going to assume still 40 miles per hour. And Gabe, if you can double check that speed for me, I'd like to know for sure if that's kind of what we're dealing with here. But here's kind of your track: Lodi at 423, Center at 435, Gibson at 442, looking at Westwood 442, Walthall 433, and Zappa there at 449. This is a non-severe thunderstorm at the moment, but a storm that does have at least some rotation with it at this point in time. And the spot where we have it there, east of the Center Hill community, this would be the, let me think here, this would be Montgomery and Webster County line, I believe there. And there's just a couple, there's just a spot where the rotation is, you know, at pixel to pixel rotation. But the rest of the storm just doesn't look healthy enough for that to be something. So, hey, listen, if you're in the path of this, it's always, I think, good to prepare and just have an idea, maybe most importantly, have an idea of where that safe place is just in case. So while I say find your safe place, the reality is that it's possible that maybe you would need to go to that safe place at some point. But at this point here, I would just be with knowing where it is, hopefully within steps, that place we can get to. I don't know that my concern has necessarily increased on this versus where it was a little bit ago. And just looking at our discussion with the National Weather Service down there in Jackson, no, they don't have any real concerns on this at this point, at least based off of what they say. They're not discussing it in any sort of meaningful way. But there is still that little bit of shear there. And there has been that shear there for about the last 25 minutes or so. You can see that little blob of kind of reddish black moving eastward. That's that spot there that we're watching. So Walthall eventually about 443. Hey, just a heads up, you're under a tornado watch for a reason. And watch means we probably need to be getting within steps of our safe place if we need to. And then obviously when a warning is issued, that's when we go. But to be clear, there are no tornado warnings at this moment. And I have seen unhealthier storms produce tornadoes, but this is not a super healthy looking thunderstorm, just based on what we're looking at here. And obviously that is a good thing. That's what we'd like to hear. Our camera there in Winona is going to be looking through it's light rain, but looking through a lot of rain to try to get an angle on this. So I don't expect that we're going to have much of a good angle on it. We don't. Again, looking back toward that rain, we're 72 degrees there. Winds out of the south still showing up at about 13 miles per hour right now. We'll go and look at our camera in Mabin. We have a camera back in Mabin that we can get eyeballs on this. And it just looks like cloudy. It just looks like showers. It doesn't look like we're going to have any kind of meaningful view on this storm. Current time's 4:24, and you're watching Mississippi Live Weather. As we slide up here northward, National Weather Service, I believe, is going to be canceling this severe thunderstorm warning we have up here for Tate County within the next few minutes. The storm itself continues to kind of go through a bit of a collapsing phase as it moves eastward. I'll put a loop on here over the last 30 minutes. It's actually moving this portion here a lot more east than it is northeast like it was before. There were two areas where we kind of had a little bit of rotation. This one up here closer to Hernando and the one up toward Holly Springs. One has gotten a little bit heavier precipitation-wise. The other has not. Let's go ahead and bring it to now. And let's check the wind a few different ways. We're going to look from closer by there in the Memphis radar area there, and we do still show, I think in both cases, maybe a little bit of broad rotation there. The one closer to Holly Springs maybe a little bit stronger. So let's look at that one slightly closer. I'm going to look actually one more radar site before we do that. And this is going to be from the tower Doppler weather radar, which shows that rotation a little more pronounced out here closer and on the north side there of Holly Springs. Let's look at this a little more closely. Let's check out the precipitation mode on that. This looks a lot worse is because this is a radar that does a really great job looking at wind and a so-so job looking at precipitation, but it's for the Memphis airport, so checking out wind shear is what it's supposed to do. So let's get a storm track. We'll keep it about 40 miles per hour. And Gabe, I don't know if you can confirm whether that speed is still accurate on that. I have another way to kind of check the speed on that if we can. Give me a moment to double check that.
I had 45.
You had 45?
At least on those cells moving through the kind of central portions of our viewing area, those individual cells that this would align with.
Okay, so I'll say between 40 and 45 mile per hour movement on that there. Let's see if on this particular radar, if we have some of that rotation. Again, broad rotation still showing up on this one as well. Very near Highway 7 on the north side there of Holly Springs. So tracking that toward the northeast, I said about 40 to 45 miles per hour. And there's some times Atway, we're looking at about 431 for you, Hudsonville at 432, Lamar, Mama Justice Doppler radar showing this getting to you by 439, Spring Hill 447, 453, Canaan, New Canaan 454, and Blackjack 455. This is some broad rotation on Mama Justice Doppler radar. I'm going to go back to that Memphis airport radar, which has shown it a little more tight. But even there, what's interesting is that if I were making an argument on the direction, obviously you can see that I would say our rotation's moving this way. That is not the direction I just tracked it, right? Let's go check out that closer radar. Yeah, so the individual thunderstorm moving more northeast, whatever that is. And again, it's a long ways from being something significant. Let's change our angle on that. And let's address that and bring that more. I put it more this direction here. So adjusting those locations, Ashland, obviously we have a thunderstorm basically overhead, some gusty winds with that. If this were to do something weird, we'd be looking at that for you to be 447 probably before it got there. Gravestown 455, as well as Blackjack and Wittentown at 457. But this is still a long ways from producing something like that. Again, severe thunderstorm warning we have out here, Senatobia, Tunica. This is going to be allowed to expire at 4:30 at the time where it's supposed to go away there. As we come south here, we're going to get back to checking a few different radar sites on a few of these thunderstorms back here. Still showing some very broad rotation on this storm here near Cedar Hill, between that and Eupora. Getting a storm track on that, and again, 45 miles per hour. What we'll say about 45 miles per hour on that. Eupora, we'd be looking at about 447 for you if it kind of continued at that pace there toward the northeast, and really more east than northeast. Walthall 446, Mathiston 458. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynard has been watching some power outages here behind the scenes. We have not had as many of these, and I got to put the lightning back on to get kind of a good sense of that. A decent number of lightning strikes out of these storms, certainly in comparison to last night. 500 just on the screen here right now. Seems like a pretty high number. Our power outages starting to pile up a little bit.
They are, and in the areas that you would expect. So northwest Mississippi on our Entergy map, at least showing a few more of those towards DeSoto County. Very sporadic though, so this does tell me that it's more than likely some of those isolated wind gusts knocking down maybe a power line, a power pole, or some of those strikes actually reaching the surface as well. And for some of those residential neighborhoods towards the southeast side, actually south of Olive Branch, closer to Independence, that's where we're getting a few of those outages. And then as we look closer to, let's see, that would be closer to Highway 301, a few outages just out of the Arcabella Lake. So that's where we're getting a few of those reports. And then earlier on, we were tracking some towards Grenada. Looks like actually I said the bulk of it has been addressed, but unfortunately it does not look like that's the case. We're up to 480 outages there in Grenada. And the fortunate thing is down there towards Winona, it does look like that outage has been restored. Now earlier on, I did have an outage out there towards Winston County and continue to have that this evening, about 553 outages southwest of Louisville, closer to the Zama area and Vowel community. So that was from some sub-severe storms that are moving through the area. Perhaps, again, some of those lightning strikes reaching the surface. So Matt, that's where I think the power outages are stemming from so far. But what I'm paying attention to right now is specifically northwest Mississippi, as some of those outages do start to populate in a little bit more, we'll have to look at some of those local power co-ops out there towards Holly Springs to see how that has gone so far. But, it hasn't updated just yet. But, of course, power outages come after the storm, not during. And that's one thing that's unfortunate.
Absolutely. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard there, you mentioned up closer to Holly Springs. That's where Josh with North Mississippi Storm Chasers is. That's his camera that I have pulled up next to me here. A different way in which I can show one of these cameras, I'm going to pull up kind of our other version of Mama Justice Doppler radar. I pulled up Josh's shot because he is right here. So he is just south of that kind of area of broad rotation that we were looking at a moment ago there, north on Highway 7 out of the Holly Springs area. This is not a place where we typically have a ton of good cell phone service. I think that's probably preventing us from really getting much of a look at it. And looking from the radar there at the airport in Memphis, that little area of circulation is not super duper strong, thankfully. But what is also evident from this, on this non-severe thunderstorm back there, pretty much right on top of the radar site, you'll notice how this one again just is kind of moving. And watch how just the little interaction with the winds and everything going. Last 13 minutes, cloud to ground lightning, or the last 30 minutes. That's a lot. Behind the scenes, both Tyler and Timothy and Josh are all up there kind of monitoring that, talking about the bases on these thunderstorms being very low. One of those chaser terms. But I guess that's good because that also means that there's nothing to show at the moment as far as that goes. So, Gabe, I'm going to toss it back to you. I'm going to let you answer a few questions here for a moment as I kind of prepare a few things behind the scenes here. So I'll kind of pull that up for you as well.
Yeah, so continuing to just assess what's going on there in Marshall and moving into Benton County. that broad rotation that you were looking at just a moment ago continues to work its way up there towards the north and northeast. Now, one of the things that I was looking at behind the scenes to actually make sure that we had some of the directions right on this is overall, if you look at let me put it on this 30-minute loop, that'll get the picture. You're getting these faster moving storms down to the south where you look like you're basically wrapping around this base up here towards the western Tennessee area. So with the storms closer to western Tennessee, then they're going to move a little bit slower, but down the band, they have to be moving a little bit faster in order to keep up with that entire band. So it's going to be faster out here towards Pontotoc, towards Houston, compared to what they're getting up there in Marshall County. So that was one of the things with those speeds that I was working to get behind the scenes. And that's where it is going to be a little bit slower as that moves through Benton and now Tippah County. So paying attention to that, let's jump to that latest scan and get a storm track on that broad rotation. So as it is continuing to move in that, actually, let's make sure we have the motion on this right, as this has been a little bit of having a mind of its own. So that looks like it's almost heading directly east at that point. So that's how we're going to treat it. We might have to do an updated storm track here in just a moment. So let's get it on that latest scan. And let's put a storm track on this. I'm going to give a little bit of a northern tilt to it, but overall, I think that's pretty good right there. We'll go at about 35 miles an hour. Snow Lake Shores, you're seeing 448, Ashland 454, Canaan 502, and Blackjack by about 504 as well. So as you can see, that's that area of broad rotation that we were talking about just a moment ago. We are still getting some of that shear to show up, and that shows us that there is some rotational loft that this is picking up on there on our Mama Justice Doppler radar. Now, hail swath, getting some of that possible hail as well, and that also shows a sign of a rotating storm. Some of that rotation could produce some small hail as a result. So far, reports have not been, Asia saying power flash on and off in Algoma, so that's something to pay attention to is those power outages. I'll work to get that here in just a moment. But one thing that is reassuring, at least, is we've not gotten any reports of damage. And it's been a while since we've gotten a report of hail. That one in northwest Alabama was our only one of the afternoons so far here in our coverage area. A little bit up north, I saw some folks mentioning Missouri. Missouri got some large hailstones as well. Now, I see a lot of folks asking, well, what about Holka? What about Itawamba County? What about these areas that are basically right there in the middle? This is a welcome sight, all things considered. When you have this large amount of thunderstorms, that is going to therefore limit that severe weather potential. If it was just one or two cells and they were able to eat up the energy we have in North Mississippi, then we'd be seeing a much more primed atmosphere. But overall, we're getting that heavy rainfall, we're getting a large output of lightning, and potential for some of those small hailstones. That's where those purples are that are showing up. That's what's indicated by our peak impacts there for any of that small hail potential. But as we look at that, let me actually take it over there towards Franklin County, Alabama. It does look like that's a more impressive signature there for some large hail. So way we're going to do that is use our True Shield Roofing hail swath. And yeah, you're getting a look at that track right there through, oh man, I am blind as a bat, towards Scottsville. Is that actually what it is? Sweet. Vina, and then up there towards the Glasgow community.
Yes, Scottsville.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, there's my new town for this event. So working its way up there towards Franklin County, Alabama, not impossible to get some of that small hail to develop. Now, one thing I will do on this real quick is take this into 3D mode to get a look at that vertical development, because this is going to help us assess, how that hail is falling, if this is still an intensifying thunderstorm, or if this is going to start dumping out some of that small hail. So clearing off some of that reflectivity, trying to get some of that purple to show up. Yeah, I mean, it's not impossible there that we're getting some of that hail to develop. Now, you're getting that right there towards the Atwood community, the Vina area, that beginning to work its way more into Franklin County. As we put it on that loop, we can kind of see how this has developed a little bit more vertically. And let's see if it is still strengthening. We're still seeing that updraft climb. I don't think this has dumped the hail just yet. So I think this is still an increasing thunderstorm, increasing in regards to that hail threat. So paying attention to that. And as we look further we can take it out of 3D mode on this, because as that continues to move up there towards the northeast, that's one to pay attention to. Let's bring it back to our 2D mode real quick and bring it back to more of a vertical view and track this one out as it does move in that northeast direction. This is one that I would increase the speed a little bit on. So let's actually bring it right there. I'm going to do it right along that leading edge. And let me make sure this is on the latest scan so that way it doesn't keep jumping on me. So we're going to go right there, all the way across. We're going to take that up there. We'll do about 38 miles an hour just to make sure we cover that. And this will continue to move in that northeast direction. So we're seeing Glasgow Corner 444, Duketown 445, Nicks Mill 445, Liberty Hill 448, the Rockwood area 453, Isbell by 457, Russellville 459, Fairview 503, Jonesboro 506, and Waco closer to about 507. This has the potential for some of that large hail as it does move further into Franklin County, which is under that severe thunderstorm watch. That's where we could get potentially one of those severe thunderstorms to develop. So what's new? Well, we do have a new severe thunderstorm warning that's in place until 5:30, encompassing parts of Alcorn County, Tippah County, even out here towards Benton County. And I believe Marshall, too, it does include on that latest one to accommodate for some of those stronger thunderstorms. This is where we saw that rotation earlier on. Let's jump back into this storm to see if we can get a visual on that rotation. I'm going to have to turn lightning off. I apologize. That's just a lot of strikes on there. And we're going to swap this over to our Memphis radar site. Doesn't look as impressive. Let me make sure. Yeah, it's still there. It's still there, but it doesn't look as impressive as what it did a few scans ago. Definitely a welcome sight, all things considered. But, you know, Matt, it is still broadly rotating. That one newly warned till 5:30, right along Highway 72 for folks right along the Tennessee state line. So that's a storm to continue to pay attention to, but definitely seeing some strengthening on some of these storms moving through North Mississippi.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor talking through some of the warnings as they stand as of now 5:42. So let's kind of reset things here for a moment. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor there in our downtown Tupelo studios. We're watching a new severe thunderstorm warning that's been issued for locations up near the Tennessee state line. It does include Ripley, parts of Alcorn County now, a good chunk of Benton County, much of Marshall County, even all the way back to DeSoto County in that warning. Those storms have had a little bit more of a history, some strong wind gusts up that direction. As we change over our radar site on Mama Justice Doppler radar to the radar based out of Monroe County, there's a lot of folks in the chat, they're asking, what about my location? Why haven't you mentioned it? Let's talk about something. There's plenty of lightning, so there's going to be lots of boomers. Lightning, the thunder that accompanies it. I heard one of the loudest claps I've heard at my house right there just a second ago. That's not what we're concerned with here. We're doing this coverage because there remains a tornado watch in effect for the northern part of Mississippi. This is not something that comes from Mississippi Live Weather. This is something that the folks at the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma have put out for us. National Weather Service as well, two arms of the government. So forecasters looking at the broad scale saying it's possible here. Here's what you need to know on our opinion. I think it's a very good likelihood that most of us do not face a real significant tornado threat tonight. But could we see one tornado pop up out of this band here? Yeah, I think that's a possibility. Now, I will say, based on what we're looking at now, it's becoming less and less likely, unless something changes, that we're going to see that high-end wind potential. That is an improvement on this from where we've been before. But we have had pretty consistently some hail from time to time. And again, our largest hail picture that you sent in, True Shield Roofing, is doing a $100 gift card for that. But high wind potential, I think, is probably one of the main impacts that we see, but I'm just not sure we're talking 70 plus mile per hour winds. And again, maybe a brief tornado, a possibility out of this. So let's start south and work our way north, looking here at our various radar sites. We're going to have to change the radar site out of Jackson to be closest for what we have down here toward Carthage and Forest. These thunderstorms, again, below severe limits with the exception of the one we have there for Yazoo County. And Yazoo County, not one that we cover here on Mississippi Live Weather, at least not at this stage of the game. Maybe at some point in the future. Let's make this a 1 hour loop. Let's make it move a little bit faster so we can get a better look kind of at that. The cluster of thunderstorms we have running ahead near Carthage, just a lot of heavy rainfall and a ton of lightning. That's one of the things Gabe mentioned a moment ago there. If we had the lightning strikes on just on this perspective here, we showed 2,200 odd lightning strikes over the last half hour. That's a lot. The wind mode here shows, again, some broad rotation, a few spots. Even if I kick it to shear where it's a little more aggressive, I don't show much. So let's slide northward and concentrate on thunderstorms farther north. Now, from time to time, we've had a few little blips here, blips there. Like, for example, that blip of shear that we showed near Starkville, that's not one that concerns me because it's been on for one scan. We look for things like that that are on for extended period of times. I don't even show really any heavier thunderstorms where that one is showing up there. We'll change it then back to our radar site based in Monroe County. And again, nothing that's really concerning there in Starkville. Nonetheless, we still have some lightning strikes there. Same thing in Columbus. We have some lightning strikes there. But, you know, we check for wind or rotation or anything like that, and there's nothing of concerns that I'm looking at there at all, really, out of any of those thunderstorms. So come back over here to the rainfall mode. Same thing when I'm looking Clay County. Same thing when I'm looking Monroe County. Yeah, there's heavy rainfall. If I were to check the cameras, Aberdeen, for example, for one, you know, we have rainfall around, heavier a little east of Aberdeen. The moisture is there, but it's too many thunderstorms. See, we have, thankfully, the opposite of what we had yesterday. So yesterday, our cap was too strong, and so thunderstorms couldn't break through. If you had gotten a thunderstorm to break through, you'd got a strong tornado. But we couldn't get a thunderstorm to break through, thankfully. Now today, we've got rainfall Aberdeen or Houston or really any other location out there that I want to click on a camera. It's pretty much raining everywhere. 70 there in Houston as well, so we'll pull that back down. But we have too many storms now. We have too much rainfall. There is not enough to hold things down and allow them to be explosive when storms occur. And that is limiting the tornado potential for us, thankfully. So it's kind of the opposite side of the same coin, and maybe somewhere in the middle is where we would expect to find ourselves with a more significant tornado threat. So thankfully, that is not something that is materialized to this point here. So let's go back again to our wind mode just to see if there's any suspicious little areas of rotation. And up here in Tupelo or Pontotoc or New Albany, again, I know we have tons of viewers in these locations waiting to say, what about my community? In fact, if I popped up that chat, that is almost always what people are asking, mentioning, you know, watching there, where you're at in Saltillo or Blue Mountain or Tupelo or Crumtown. You know, if we're talking about for any of you folks there, and I'm back here on rain. This is just rain. We have a tornado watch, but this is just rain. Looking at the wind mode here, there is nothing that concerns me at all looking at the wind mode for any of the locations I just mentioned. Union, Pontotoc, Lee counties, nothing in there. Itawamba County, Prentiss County at this point, or Tishomingo County that I'm looking at all. Now, there are other thunderstorms west. Things could change. But while these are loud storms, these are not severe storms. While these will sometimes cause power outages, and we have had some of those reports of power outages with these, we're much more likely to have issues with power outages as the lightning increases, but we're not likely to see tornadoes out of these in the next little bit here. Now, things eventually could change. So with that in mind, that's why I'm not really talking about it. Too many thunderstorms, not enough for the atmosphere to concentrate on one in any kind of really significant or bad way. But let's go look up here a little farther north, and that's what we're looking at with these thunderstorms up here close to Ashland. And again, I skipped right over Oxford. Let's address Oxford here for a moment. Looking at winds, some spots there where maybe we have some broad rotation, maybe a little bit of shear with this. These storms are maybe a little bit more organized. Let's look at them from the Memphis area as well. Again, maybe some spots where I have some broad rotation kind of in the middle of this storm near Abbeville. Let's get a storm track on that just in case. But days away from certain concerns. Again, go a little wider on that. We'll track that 45, and there's some times, again, Abbeville over top of you pretty much in the next few minutes, and then going eastward from there. I'm going to leave some of those locations on there kind of in the track of this. Eventually, New Albany, that is heading toward you, but that's got a long ways and a major uphill battle before that would be something that could produce a tornado. I think New Albany, 527 we show for you. I just don't know that that's going to be the case. The only storm at this point here in our area that could potentially have what it takes is up here close to Ashland. And it even is in northern Benton County, a little less impressive than necessary, thankfully. But we do still show some broad rotation. Right there again near Ashland, that's where that area of broad rotation is. When we look at the shear, the rotation, there is just a little bit showing up, but you can see some splotches all over the place. That's not exactly a screaming endorsement, thankfully. Let's check the radar site from the Memphis Tower Doppler weather radar again, which is a little closer. Just north of Highway 4 where we have maybe just a little bit more rotation. And every spot I'm looking at this here is a somewhat underwhelming example of that. But let's get a storm track on it nonetheless. Again, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning here in Benton County. The spot I'm watching is right there where that line is coming out of that. So there is probably hail on the north side of this. This track is not for hail. This track is for any of the rotation that this storm has fairly consistently shown, but not actually really ratcheted up and produced. So looking at this, we're looking at 454 there for Ashland. Current time is 450. If I'm in Ashland, what do we need to know about this? First off, this is a strong storm. Should we be outside? Absolutely not. Let's be inside. Let's be in a safer location. In my house, I would tell my kids, let's stay away from windows. There's no tornadoes, nothing even resembling one right now, but I would tell my kids, let's stay away from windows because it's a thunderstorm. You never know if lightning's going to strike something's going to fall in the whole 9 yards. So it's better to just be, toward the middle part of a sturdy structure with any thunderstorm that's coming through. So I would say that definitely applies for folks in Ashland, Blackjack, Wittentown, Faulkner ahead as these storms move through. Checking our True Shield hail track on this, the hail has been maybe spotty at most. We just have not had a lot, I think, of hail potential on this as it's kind of moved through, but not impossible to maybe see a little bit of hail. But Matt, again, that's not as impressive as what we had earlier on. And I'll bring Gabe in here for a second. Gabe has some information. Let's go ahead and talk to Gabe for a moment. Gabe, what you got?
So just outside of our viewing area in southwest part of our area, Yazoo City has a very large hail core on a severe thunderstorm tag that's just south of Attala and Holmes County. So worth keeping note on. Does look like it's moving a little bit more easterly, but some of the hail returns on it were pretty big. And now no verification at the surface, but that's the potential that it does have.
And that one's out by itself. Anytime a storm decides to become a loner and go out and do its own thing, that's when we, pay close attention to it, right? And one of the interesting things about this is formed back on the backside of, this other cluster of storms, but you can't see how it is cleared out. And this is what opens the door for additional storm development this evening. We prefer think highly of a round of storms right after a first, but this first round has not been a major severe weather producer, so it would take something more significant kind of rotating through. Now, this storm, the one you mentioned down here toward Yazoo City, and looking at that hail, again, the hail threat on that remains pretty significant. Estimations on that one up in excess of 2 inches. So there's a whole lot of reasons to pay close attention to this, and it is broadly rotating, though in this case, I'd say the hail is the biggest and most significant impact that storm will have. So yeah, as you mentioned that there near Yazoo City and moving that eastward, we'll say 40, 45 miles per hour. That eventually probably clips Pickens and southern Attala County. Tracking that eastward, we'll see if we can pull up that specific storm track here. In a moment to get that up. And we'll take that eastward, we'll say 60 miles, because that one's more likely to probably hold on for a while. And eventually we're looking at, say, Zemley there at about 546, Bolatusha at 547, Forest Grove 507, Thomastown close to about 549. And Gabe, you've been looking at, power outages for other locations. You've also been looking at what people have been sending in as far as storm reports are concerned, right?
Yes, and this is what a lot of the views are. It's just those dark, gloomy skies. Honestly, kind of a welcome sight seeing this much stratus cloud here in North Mississippi, because that's limiting that severe weather potential as well. Now, there is still a ton of energy. That was out there towards Boonville, submitted there by Genedy. And then if we do have one looking there towards Mantachie. So this is going to be more of those heavy downpours. I mean, you might even hear it here at the studio. One thing that happened about 5 to 10 minutes ago, lightning struck not too far away from the Mississippi Live Weather Studio, and I was very glad that we were able to stay up and stay live, but my stuff did flicker for a moment. So from what I've seen, that has not affected the stream, and it shouldn't, but glad that we're still up and running here in the Room to Room Weather Center. So lots of those reports, even some of those scary clouds out there, scary looking clouds, I should say, out there towards Coahoma County. This would have been earlier on. But even the sky is telling us the story here in North Mississippi of those gloomy, rainy days, giving us exactly what we need in heavy rainfall. I mean, we're in a deep drought still, and that drought monitor coming out Thursday should look a little bit better due to this heavy rainfall. But of course, that's one of the things that I've been looking at here behind the scenes. One other thing that I've been looking at are those power outages. This one going to be primarily Louisville over there towards Attala County. I am curious how this will update once that storm does move through towards southern Itala County. So paying attention there. Entergy showing a few more of those outages out there towards, I gotta scroll down, so let the technology work with me. But out there closer to, this would be closer to Holmes County, a little bit south of there towards Durant, and we have still a good amount of outages south there of Winona. This would have been where some of those thunderstorms worked through earlier on today. That was about 229 customers affected, and Durant showing close to, let me see if that'll pull up, 176 outages right there in the town of Durant. And as we work our way south there towards, I believe that is Pickens right there, some of those outages, just a few sporadic outages overall, and Carthage even getting a bit as well, about 94 there. So very sporadic, and that basically means there's a lot of lightning, and when that lightning reaches the surface, heard it here at the studio, or reaches the ground I should say, then that's where we do get some of those sporadic outages. So overall, that number is continuing to climb. Looking at the overall coverage of poweroutage.us, you can see that we are up to 4,000, actually I'm blocking it right here, 4,597 customers out across North Mississippi as that number does continue to climb. And actually looking at this, one thing I'll have to look at behind the scenes, Matt, will be those outages that are towards northwest Mississippi, Tunica County. Actually, I have it pulled up right here. Let's actually just jump over to Tunica County so we can get a good look at what has taken place, because that was where those thunderstorms were working through earlier on. So as that does continue to work, I might have to restart this computer, honestly. But as that does, Matt, you might have to take over. Technology's struggling back
I'm going to go and take over because the new severe thunderstorm warning coming down for the Oxford area here in the next few minutes for the southern part of this line. We're going to actually start our 5 o'clock broadcast here a couple minutes early to accommodate that. Mississippi Live weather at 5 starting here in just.
I have been going to Tupelo Smiles my whole life. When I was a kid, I was unhappy about some uneven coloring on my teeth after getting my braces off, which at the time there really wasn't a fix. I was recently made aware of a solution that totally fixed it, which is what we did. They not only my concerns, but I kept looking problem, and that's why I love to Smiles.
Trusted is weather at 5.
Welcome to Mississippi Live Weather at 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. We are tracking showers and thunderstorms again this afternoon. To this point, we have missed out on the worst. And man, oh man, please send me an email tomorrow telling me how glad you are we missed this one. I'm really hoping that's the case. Now, we've talked about how none of this has been high confidence for tornadoes, yet we have tornado watches in effect. It's not impossible to see some wind gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour, though we have had no reports of that. We have seen some hail in excess of an inch, not quite to an inch and a half in size, and rain has continued to fall for a lot of spots. As we mentioned, the highest confidence on the excessive rainfall totals over the course of this event, some in excess of 4 inches. We're definitely going to hit that, I think, by the end, where the rain has been, again, the most widespread. Looking over the course of the next few hours, we're really right now should be pretty close to the peak next couple hours here for as far as our severe weather threat is concerned. We have those tornado watches in effect until coming up 10 o'clock for our but in either case, this is not a high-end severe weather event, and hopefully that is a way of describing this that does continue going forward. Looking at Mama Justice Doppler radar, we're down here closer to locations around Yazoo City. A severe thunderstorm warning there. Woodlawn 501, Benton at 503, Yazoo County till 5:30 under severe thunderstorm warning. Large hail, maybe some gusty winds. Any rotation is broad. No significant threat as far as that's concerned. A new severe thunderstorm warning, though, has been issued for locations up here closer to the Oxford area, stretching from Oxford southward closer to Water Valley. This batch of thunderstorms here has been kind of strengthening the last couple of hours. And as we clear off that previous track, the wind on this remains one of the questions. Some broad rotation in some cases along the leading edge of this, a potential still that this could maybe try to spin up a tornado. But of our severe weather threats, I would say that the heavy rainfall is the biggest one, but there will be some gusty winds as well. We're looking at the teams in the field. We'll check in with our Easton Foster here in a minute as he is on the live Mississippi Live Drive for us coming up here in a few minutes. As we track along the leading edge of this overall line here, stretching from kind of north to south, all moving about 40 miles per hour. It'll take me a while to get through some of these spots. But we show Denmark right now, Cornerstone right now, Winborn right now, eventually toward Lafayette Springs at about 5:08, Takapola 5:10, Sarepta 5:11, Etta 5:12, Myrtle about 5:14, Thaxton about 5:15. If we look farther down the road on this track, and mostly this is going to be non-severe, but there remains the possibility that perhaps from time to time it could produce some severe weather. Let's go ahead and we'll take it down. We'll kind of eliminate a few of those locations, and we'll say Blue Mountain by about 5:22, Algoma 5:30-ish, 5:29, Pontotoc around 5:29, Tupelo about 5:50, Saltillo close to right about 5:58, 6 o'clock for Boonville, and eventually Mantachie by about 6:13, assuming this continues to kind of head eastward at that speed. There are other locations, obviously, in that track, and I apologize I didn't mention every single one of those. Looking at the wind mode here, again, some broad rotation along the leading edge of this, and I do feel like in the last 30 minutes that's something that has become a little bit more obvious. I think for one reason or another, the atmosphere working in a way that I'm getting a few little spots in here where we're starting to show some signs of a little bit of spin on this. So heads up that this is one we're going to, a batch that we're probably going to have to watch more in the next 30 to 45 minutes versus where we have been at this point here. Hopefully that's not the case, but that remains a possibility. And then if you have a hard time seeing the graphic through all the lines, that's the lightning strikes. 3,500 in the last 30 minutes have shown up in this portion that we're looking at here. As I'm checking out the wind mode from both the Memphis radar site as well as our radar site down in Monroe County, a couple spots that still do catch the attention out here. Again, closer to maybe Hickory Flat, and then back up east of the Ashland area, depending on exactly which one of these we're kind of looking at there. But I do think we've seen some cell mergers that hopefully reduces some of the severe weather potential on this a little bit. So let's go ahead and track this eastward. On the northern part, again, this is probably moving about 40 miles per hour. And we're talking out here for Tippah County under severe thunderstorm until 5:30. Same for Benton. Same for Alcorn County until 5:30. You can see some of the times on your screen. Of course, moving Collegiate, we show about 5:11. Blue Mountain, 5:20. This is mainly gusty winds. There's maybe some broad rotation with this. Ripley at 5:23 for you. And getting close to Silver Springs there, about 5:34. If that were to make it east far enough to say get all the way to Corinth, for example. Let's take this a little farther east. And we'll change the size here just a little bit. We show that it would take into Corinth till about 5:43 before it got to you. Rienzi about 5:57, Boonville 6:02, Burnsville about 6:14, and Iuka somewhere around 6:26. A couple ways we're going to assess these thunderstorms as we kind of clear everything off on here. We're going to check out some of our cameras. We mentioned Oxford a minute ago. We'll kind of start with Oxford and then kind of move from there on our various cameras, showing again that mix of cloud cover on our Phoenix Building Solutions camera there in the Oxford area in Lafayette County under a severe thunderstorm warning. The strongest storm, though, east of the Oxford area. So, you know, for parents of kids going, hold on, tornado watch plus warning, what do we need to know? Just know this. It's past the Oxford area at this point. All the kids live in Oxford. All the adults and everybody else lives in Oxford. We're okay. We're in good shape. With this one, it's on the eastern side of the county in particular that we are looking. Camera, we're going to slide down to the spots down there in, I don't know why that's still querying Tippah County, but we're down here in Yalobusha County with this. A severe thunderstorm warning for the northern part of Yalobusha County with this. Pittsboro, we're kind of looking through a shower here. We might have to swing this camera a little bit to get a better look at that. So give me a moment to kind of do that as we look again northward out of this. Pittsboro, H-I-J-K-L-M-N-O-P. It'll take me a little bit to remember my alphabet to get in the right spot. So right now this camera is, I think, looking in the wrong direction. Now we need to look a little bit more toward the northeast. So we'll point it, northwest. So we'll point that more toward the northwest. Well, that looks a little interesting. Hold on, let's keep going a little more with that. Give me a moment here for this to update. Okay, so let's talk first off about what we're looking at here. Now, this looks rough. Here's what you need to know. Most of this stuff you see in the foreground here is what we call scud clouds, just kind of lifting up. Now, that, to the untrained eye, it's easy to say, hold on, that's moving. That's low hanging. That could be a tornado. That's not what this is. Let's be clear. That's not what this is. In saying that, I'm interested to see what radar looks just beyond that, because if I'm just looking at the radar inset on here, that looks more impressive than it did a minute ago, pretty much right there in the direction we would be looking, because it looks like there's a little bit of a notch there showing up as well. So I'm going to get off the radar inset and go back to the true radar and slide southward on that one. That's the one, again, northwest of Bruce there. Let's check out the wind mode from Memphis, which is what we're looking at. Broad rotation there. Wind mode from Monroe County does not show the same quality of rotation at the same spot I'd be looking at there near Highway 32 in Pine Valley. We do have a storm chaser there with North Mississippi Storm Chasers that tends to stay in that area there. Looking at that, I think I'm not seeing a whole lot on there from their folks at this point in time either. So that's good. But again, a few spots in here where we have some broad rotation along the leading edge of this line of thunderstorms here. As we mentioned a moment ago, we do have, as I'll bring it back on the wider shot, tornado watch that remains in effect. That tornado watch is until tonight at 10 p.m. Includes all locations here in blue until 10 p.m. tonight. Likely to see some cancellation on the west side before 10 p.m. though. We have a severe thunderstorm watch for locations out in West Alabama. Those are the counties in green that we depict here, and that's in effect until 11 o'clock. In either case, the thing you need to know when we start talking about watches is that means ingredients are in place that could produce something. And so ingredients in place that could potentially try to produce severe thunderstorms or a tornado, a possibility with this. Coming back here, we talked about the first 12 a minute ago, so I'm going to zip ahead to Mama Justice Doppler on a wider scale, kind of set a broader setup. So we break this down a little bit more than where we have been the last while. We've been in complete severe weather mode, and kind of give folks a better idea what happens from here. We have some stronger thunderstorms back out there into Oklahoma and North Texas. They're along this front. This frontal system will swing eastward. The expectation is that the strongest of those storms should swing eastward and southward down toward Greenville, eventually Kosciuszko, and locations closer to Canton and that direction. That is the expectation, that mostly should stay south. You can see that there are some warnings along that. When we talk about the severe weather threat, a lot of our severe weather threat that we have is based around the idea that we would have filled in probably a few more storms than we have here. So with that in mind, the severe weather risk still shows up, similar to where we've had it all day long. They, for a little while, did have a level 4 out of 5 severe weather risk for locations back there into Texas, because in particular of the hail potential, just the extreme of hail potential with this. For us, the tornado potential is more limited, and significant tornadoes do not have a high confidence level in us seeing those. It would take something different, something filling in that outlook back into Arkansas for that to happen. Significant wind. Wind potential is there, but the dark blue is the significant wind. Still not impossible to get a 70 mile per hour wind gust. And the hail, certainly that bullseye is to the west of us. Coming up here in 60 seconds on Mississippi Live Weather, we're going to dig back in the radar. We're also going to look at Futurecast, where we go from here as far as storms are concerned through the evening. That's coming up here in 60 seconds as Mississippi Live Weather continues from the Room to Room Weather Center.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
How do you know if your roofer is actually telling you the truth or just trying to sell you something you don't need? I'm Chris with Absolute Restoration. When we come out, we don't tell you what's wrong. We show you with photos, videos, and documentation. You'll see exactly what we see so you can make your own decision. And we back our work with a 50-year warranty and a 25-year algae warranty. Plus, no cost upgrades with 0% financing and no payment for 6 months.
For the first time anywhere, a digital-only weather source has been nominated for not one, but 2 Emmy Awards. This is the 25th nomination I've been humbled to receive over the years, and while accolades are great, we're just proud to deliver the weather coverage that you deserve. Thank you, North Mississippi, for supporting us here at Mississippi Live.
Right now, From the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Welcome back to Mississippi Live 5. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. We are tracking storms moving into Pontotoc County. Severe thunderstorm warning for Pontotoc County, one of the locations people are asking in the whatabouts. And we do our best to try to answer as many of those as we can. But the reality is that some locations are in a little worse shape than others at this time. Pontotoc, with the instead of this, it's as is for you location to track, and they're not other spots in this line. But we'll show that on a path that does take it into some fairly highly populated areas out here into eventually Lee County. We show that again progressing eastward. A severe thunderstorm warning for you until 5:45. That does also include, of course, all the folks there in northern Calhoun, far eastern Lafayette, Union County, parts of Benton, Tippah. Counties also in that. I think Prentiss is left out still at this point on the warnings there. So there are some times as that moves eastward there toward the Pontotoc area. Heavy rainfall, gusty wind, but we're not talking about any super large hail. Look at the hail swath. We don't have anything showing up on our True Shield hail swath. Looking at the shear, we don't have any obvious significant rotation threats with this. It's mainly just gusty winds and obviously the heavy rainfall for you. Going up the road here, looking toward New Albany. Again, we have not talked a ton about New Albany. New Albany, one of those locations under a severe thunderstorm warning. That same morning in effect until 5:45 p.m. If we go just down the road there and check out our locations here in the Blue Springs area, it's just people traveling on the road. Again, it's ahead of that severe thunderstorm there. 68, the current temperature there in Blue Springs at this point. And we're still kind of watching and waiting. You know, these storms will eventually move the severe storms toward the Tupelo area. Our Mitchell Cunningham and Bowling Skycam just showing rainfall at this instant there as well, ahead of any of the severe thunderstorms. And there's a good chance that many of us, if not most of us, do not see significant severe weather today. Thankfully, that is the way this probably plays out, despite the fact that we do have, if I pull off all of our advisories and alerts here for a moment for you, we'll pull them right off the map. That does show that, again, tons and tons and tons of lightning strikes. And these tornado watches for our Mississippi counties in effect until 10 p.m. For Alabama counties out here, for Franklin, Marion, Lamar, Pickens, Fayette counties, etc., until 11 p.m. tonight as storms start west and move east. What I have highlighted here as well are just the lightning strikes, just the absolutely absurd 13,000-ish lightning strikes that we have had. That from time to time causing power disruptions in their own right. Looking again at when we start putting on the percentages there, and I'll have to pull off the watch because it looks similar. The majority of our power outages we've had down here, Winston County, stretching back again toward Yazoo City, up north.
Go.
Alabama. Room-to-room weather center here for a moment, and we'll show you that 7-day forecast, which has Doppler radar. Kind of look at the wide shot here across the area. We just don't have a whole lot of storms kind of redeveloping back behind this. Apologize to bring up the browser here. Don't have a whole lot of live shots kind of developing back behind this there. Well, there's the beginnings of some of our thunderstorms back out there into Arkansas. So we'll see if those fill in by 6 o'clock. Obviously, we'll have a great understanding of that, or at least a better understanding of that. And then here's our severe storms. As you can see, the south part here is completely fallen apart. That's why the warning allowed to expire there for locations Pontotoc down toward Houston. That's just very unimpressive, all things considered. Dry air is clearly kind of coming in and affecting that. North Mississippi storm chasers are on this. I do see a number of their reports showing up on this here, and kind of looking at that and our chat with them. They're not really seeing a whole lot of anything either. I say that, hold on. When was that? Give me a moment. We're going to try to find out the size on this. We have a pretty good size report of some large hail there coming in from a little bit ago. Also, a report coming in for this storm down around Yazoo City that we had. According to the emergency manager there, despite the fact it just looks really, really big and bad, most of the hail size was, smaller in size, just a large quantity of hail where we ended up having that. Again, you can join the conversation with us here on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll try to answer as many of those. I see someone mentioning been bad in Hatley area there. I understand that these have been loud. We want to try to keep things in perspective, and I'm a meteorologist, and maybe I don't think things are as bad as some other folks do as well. But when we say bad, let's be clear here about what we're describing. If I'm saying bad, I need to mean that this is a storm that's probably damaging something and could hurt somebody. And that's the threshold that I would like for us to use collectively when we call a storm bad. What's the likelihood that this causes damage or hurt somebody? And I don't think that we have had those kind of storms in hours that is the case. The only storm that, maybe even is kind of somewhat remotely approaching that threshold would be kind of up here closer to say Benton, and really more Tippah, Alcorn, and Prentiss counties. And even then, if I look at the wind mode here on kind of our dirtier version of Mama Justice Doppler radar, in this case, I would just say it's not our prettiest version, but I still like this one. What can I say? I have maybe some broad rotation, some spots there, but I don't have anything that's super tight. Nothing that has me too terribly concerned looking at that there as well. So I would say the tornado threat is not one that I'm particularly impressed with on that. Okay, let's go ahead and check in with Gabe. Gabe has been looking at some things behind the scenes here. Gabe, are you going to be using the full-on models? Or are you using the other model? I see you in chroma key, so I'm going to assume that you're going to want to use. Are you ready? Let's go ahead and go to Gabe Maynor.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was Friday's rain chances, because over the weekend we dealt with the headache of positioning the low pressure system. Well, heading into the start of this week, and we were waiting on some consistency before that confidence really did climb, was where this low pressure setup happened. And as you can see on Futurecast, this is our American model here. We get some of that scattered action that Matt was tracking just a moment ago, with the heaviest portions off there to our south. But eventually, and we can see this with the jet stream as well, but I wanted to show Futurecast first because it's going to at least give you a visual on some of those rain chances in the area. We get into our Thursday, Friday time frame, and that's where you start to get this low pressure system that does form out into the eastern Texas area and eventually lifts north enough to where we're getting some of those showers and storms right here in North Mississippi. Almost have that warm front right over the top of us towards Tupelo, Birmingham, Atlanta. That's where we're going to be getting some of those heavier downpours and that cold front back behind it that's driving that threat for areas along Highway 82 if this positions the way it has. And so far, the last couple of runs have been pretty consistent on that. But this was a change that entered into the start of the week, and we are looking for more consistency. And as you can see, those rain chances continue into the early weekend. But beyond that, looks like a phenomenal forecast. So one other way that we can do this is look at our European model. And this is the way that we look at long-range forecasts is we use our longer range models and look at the comparisons and how that positioning lines up. And all things considered, they do line up decently. The European, the only note with this pattern is it tries to keep it a little bit more towards the south. So there you get that low pressure center beginning to develop there by Thursday. And that's as it works its way into the North Mississippi area by Friday. That's where we will get some of that moisture building in right there. Right there was what I was looking for. And it's a little bit later in the day, but you do get enough of that warm front to build north to where we're talking rain chances, perhaps a few storms there Friday night into your Saturday morning as well. So talking about that same general time frame, there could be some alignment that needs to be figured out for the the exact timing, but generally going to be Friday evening and storms are possible. But in regards to the unstable air, not exactly comparable to what we have right now here in North Mississippi. So
that's good.
Yeah, that threat does look to be a little bit lower, and that's a great thing because it's rain with a low severe weather threat, exactly what we need here in North Mississippi.
Man, that's exactly what we're hoping for. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynor, I appreciate that. You know, one thing that I just happened to see out of the corner of my eye that I was like, wait, hold on, is that really a thing? Is our camera there in Pittsburgh? Bring that back up here with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. For a brief second, you can't really see it now, but for a brief second there, I actually could see a little bit of clear sky out there. That tells me that there are still some pockets of clearing that have kind of figured in with this as well over the last little bit. I'm going to see if we can check out the satellite perspective on this, see if we're getting a little clearing, and maybe that's one of the things, that is kind of helping perhaps a little bit of redevelopment on the backside of this. Let's go back over to our satellite here. And again, we do have that severe thunderstorm warning that we're still tracking up here. The 545 portion of that is going to be allowed to expire on time. But when you kind of see the blue there in Grenada and down out here west of Chula, those are spots where we do have little bits of this trying to clear. A lot of high-level clouds there that are still showing up. But yeah, there are some bits of clearing there. And then we're kind of seeing the tops of those storms there, that one back toward Chula that's gotten a little bit stronger as well. As we reset things here for a moment, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor. Current time is coming in right at about 5:39, now 5:40. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather, a 24/7 streaming weather service based out of the Tupelo, Mississippi area. We have severe thunderstorm warnings that we are still tracking up here near the Tennessee state line, the far northern portion of the state of Mississippi, stretching from Booneville back toward around Corinth. We have a camera that we're looking at here in southern Alcorn County. That one, like all of our cameras, has been stuck in the rain all day. Well, at least certainly for the last few hours here. A lot of lightning showing up on this camera. I say Alcorn South. You might describe it as Rienzi. You could. It's honestly Hinkle is probably the best way to describe it. And again, fast-moving clouds, yes. Heavy rainfall, yes. Gusty winds, yes. Tornadoes, no. Large hail, not that we've seen in a long time. And damaging winds, again, not an impossibility out of this. But beyond gusty winds, not an impossibility. Again, that we could have some issues there with that. Coming down toward the Tupelo area, no official severe thunderstorm warning down here in Tupelo, but the northern part of Lee County under one of those warnings, and you can't see looking toward the horizon. There is a little bit of clearing trying to show that direction there as kind of the mid-level showers move out. Hold on a second here. If I'm clearing that much, let me just make sure that we don't have some evaporative sort of cooling evaporation going on that's kicking up maybe winds a little bit more. No, nothing out there that I see at my house up here in the north side of Tupelo that's concerning. So that might be, hopefully that's not a thing. Let's go south here, because sometimes behind a big system like this, you can get some wind enhancements. I don't really see any of that either as well. So I think we're really kind of focused just right on that severe thunderstorm warning. So the answer, again, the question that comes over and over again in the chat, it's like, what about this location? What about that location? I appreciate those folks in there that will say, you know, we're doing the best we can. That's obviously what we're trying to do, to try to analyze this as quickly as we can for everybody. But I saw someone make the comment a minute ago, and they're right, that if we're not talking about your location, we don't have high levels of concern for you. In saying that, we're going to be watching out here toward Tallahatchie County. Give this about 15 minutes to see if this continues to strengthen a little bit there. But there's just been so many lightning strikes, 8,400 lightning strikes in locations that you see on the screen here. That's almost, between 8,000 and 9,000 lightning strikes in the last 30 minutes. So much lightning in Boonville, as that most recent comment there from Savannah said, and that lightning is what's causing the power outages that we are experiencing there. So let's come up here. We'll look close in, street level, from Corinth back to Boonville, and then we're going to look at that storm down south. Let's get going, and then we're going to look back out there, that storm closer to Water Valley. So Boonville, yes, heavy rainfall. We've got plenty of that. But if we go three-dimensional on this, that's been one of the things that you've probably seen us use multiple times recently. That's kind of how we can assess, okay, what is the hail threat like on this? These are not tall storms. My system's like, hold on, that's a lot of lightning. Let's pull that lightning off there for a moment, and let's kind of slice through this so we can walk right down the line and see, just in case it's hiding some larger hail up there. And I don't see anything that's hardly above 20,000 feet for the entire storm, not all the way up. So again, these remain low-topped, perhaps strong gusty wind producers. We have not had a lot of reports of that kind of weather out of this, and so I am in no way convinced that that is what we'll end up seeing here. We do have some hail reports, though, coming in a minute, and Gabe will have some of those ready to be shown coming up here in a few minutes as well. But not necessarily from this specific batch here. The storm's out in Alabama. Again, I'd say below severe limits. Let's come south to what might end up being our strongest thunderstorm right now, which is the one we have over top of the Goodman area. Let's look at this one from down in Jackson. Again, no official severe thunderstorm warning on this, and that's the way this sometimes goes, where we take a look and start assessing these before they go severe. Look at the hail potential. That has come up on this somewhat more, as we show near Brosville there and approaching Lexington, about 1.5 inch sized hail. Let's double check here. Well, that is my chat with everybody else. So let's go ahead and bring in Gabe here for a moment to see what he's getting. What am I missing here, Gabe?
Basically just trying to get reports up from on the socials and things like that. So Caleb worked to send in a photo a moment ago from some of the storm chasers out there. So I'm looking behind the scenes waiting for that to come on in. But we did get some additional photos of just the gloomy skies. And I mean, we can see, well, that was earlier on, but just this wasn't necessarily scud cloud, but it does at least show the wispy nature of those clouds this evening. And that was out there in the clearing in Pontotoc once these storms did move on through. And then, and then we also got some of those gloomy clouds. Let me make sure the location on this. This would be Tremont. So again, a view that a lot of us have seen so far this evening, Matt.
Okay, appreciate that, Gabe. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard, there with that update. Again, send in your pictures. Again, in particular, when we start talking about hail pictures, that's where your picture could actually yield you a $100 gift card from True Shield Roofing. But, you have to send it in using the Mississippi Live Weather app. So if you do that, there's an opportunity for that. Otherwise, and you need to make sure you put it next to an item that's readily identifiable. By that, I mean either a ball or a coin or something where we know what size it is there and how large that could end up becoming. So again, checking our chat back and forth with you guys here and what you are seeing as of, again, 5:46. Most of these storms, again, remain below severe limits, but we do have a few that we are watching. For folks kind of looking at this, talking about Auburn, it's horribly thundering there. I have to emphasize this again. Lightning, there is not a correlation in this case between lightning and severe weather occurrence. In this case, there's going to be a ton of lightning under what are, the person mentioning the Auburn community up here. These are just showers, right? This is just rainfall. There's going to be a ton of lightning, and that's going to cause power outages, like mentioning there in Jumpertown. And I'm thinking not all the power outages are showing up on our maps there as well. So, Yeah, so just part of the reason we're not talking about Fulton, we're not talking about Belmont and Iuka. You guys in Belmont and Iuka are ahead of some of these stronger storms, but Okolona or Houston, you know, just not a lot out there to contend with at this point. Now down here, as we were talking about, this batch here closer moving toward Durant, this one is a little stronger, and this one does have a bit more in a hail potential, and we do need to get a storm track on this, and I did not while we were down here looking at this a moment ago. So let's get a storm track a little farther ahead. Let's go 60 miles. These have had a tendency to kind of hold on a little longer, and this might be a little too wide of a track there. And we'll go ahead and shrink down the number of locations where this is going over that period of time. Durant, we're looking at about 557 for you. Kosciuszko, 519. Ethel, 629 there. 702 Knox, Pater, and Louisville, about 703. This is Doppler radar indicated hail that's probably increasing in size, probably some gusty wind. This is just in a zone where things have started to get a little bit more organized in the last 20, 30 minutes or so. These storms back building, and you can see this building of thunderstorms up farther north as well, even in the area, perfectly aligned in the area where they canceled the tornado watch. That's all it takes. They cancel tornado watch, and then the storms start kind of refiring up here as well. But I see someone mentioning Baldwin. I see someone mentioning Corinth. You know, east of Corinth, where the strongest part of that line is at this point here. We're going to look more at these storms back out there towards Sardis and Water Valley here in a few minutes. But if we just kind of stretch it down to our most intense, just kind of looking at the peak threats. At this point, we're still at the scale where this is all just heavy rainfall. It does have one spot there south of Sardis where maybe we could have a couple of hailstones with this. But based on what we have seen today, that's probably not yet hail. And so this area here we show from Corinth to Boonville. You know, I looked at Boonville a little bit ago. We're up here looking east of Corinth, and we're checking out the wind on this. You know, out of this. We don't have a perfect line on this here, but this is probably along that leading edge. Still, it's very reasonable. Use blue. That's probably a decent color to kind of show the leading edge, the cold air and the strong winds. That is what's that nearly 60 mile per hour winds near moving toward Glens and Kendrick and High Point and Iuka and Midway and Tishmingo. You all are in the path of this storm and whatever it is bringing with it. And that very well could end up being some damaging wind gusts. Let's clear all that off. Again, any damaging wind gusts we expect to be sporadic in nature. Going to track that about 40 miles per hour, which is about as fast as these have been going. Go back to the regular rainfall mode here on Mama Justice Doppler. And so while that's where the wind shift is, just looking at the precipitation mode, I'd have it east of there. Let's put this in play here. Wonder if it's not too heavy. I think part of the issue is that there's some beam blockage. If you look, there's kind of a line that shows up right there the whole time. And that line that you see there is there's some trees down here that kind of blocking that. So that's what makes it look a little weaker than the reality of the situation. So as of 5:50 p.m., I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. I guess it was at 3:30 as well. But you're watching Mississippi Live Weather as we are tracking some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Most of these are below severe limits. I see Brianna out of the corner of my eye saying Columbus. Want to know about Columbus? We have not talked about the Golden Triangle. You know why? If I slide down to Columbus, nothing to worry about on this at this point in time. Now, there are some additional thunderstorms that are redeveloping, and these do look like these are more the kind of thunderstorms that would have some rotation with them. But I would say that rotation is going to hinge more on hail, but we're watching that for you in Kosciuszko. That's going to be one we have to pay close attention to. The storm's down farther south, closer to Forest and moving there closer to Meridian, a little heavier than what we have up north, but we're starting to hit kind of a lull here as storms are redeveloping. And that is something that earlier on in this broadcast we showed and talked about how the storms were going to potentially redevelop. Models were very sure of that. And just like that, over the last 30 minutes, that's what's happened. This is a 1 hour loop. And you can see most of the way through this hour, nothing. And then storms spreading in coverage, more heavy rainfall, kind of moving for spots back there toward Oxford and Sardis and Water Valley. Let's go to Batesville here, which has been a camera we've used a lot. Before we go Batesville, we're going to actually go to Iuka. Again, in the severe thunderstorm warning up there in Iuka, a severe thunderstorm warning that remains in effect, as you can see, until 6:15. We've had no indications that this has produced damaging wind in a while. That does not mean it has not and just hasn't shown up well on radar. We do tend to look fairly high up on the thunderstorm. If we're in Iuka, this is always just about preparedness. Let's make sure we're in our safest location, the middle of a sturdy structure. The reality is that this storm is still on its way in, and there's more than a decent chance that this does not produce a whole lot of severe weather. Nonetheless, got to monitor it, we've got to watch it, got to prepare for it, just in case that is what it ends up at some point producing. I said we were going to go out there to the two locations back out there in Batesville, but I want to go to Clarksdale first. This is looking kind of into some of those storms. You can still see some of the low-hanging clouds there on the horizon. And despite the fact that we've had some thunderstorms around, the temperature is not a whole lot warmer than the dew point, but a dew point at 73, if the atmosphere loft is structured right, that still means that there is available fuel out there for thunderstorms. So additional development likely for locations back out here in the Delta the next couple of hours. Here's that Batesville camera that I was referencing just a moment ago. Again, looking into the north, some of those showers have kind of popped up. Whatever kind of steam that is, coming from there. Hopefully that's not smoke. Yeah, again, some of those showers building 73 degrees there in the Batesville area with showers and thunderstorms kind of all around. And our camera here coming in from the Oxford area as of now, we're at 5:53, shows just kind of dark and gray and not quite done for the day. Back to the regular rainfall mode on Mama Justice Doppler radar. Let's answer kind of some of the big questions. We will do a big reset here coming up during our 6 o'clock broadcast here for a minute. But I see Amy mentioning Farmington, multiple times there. If you are dealing with issues, please be specific on what it is that you guys are seeing on this here. Like I see someone mentioning, what about, specific, like someone said, Tristan just said help. Okay, well, help me understand, what it is that, and we'll do the best we can to try to answer some of these questions. But the reality is, for most of us, storms are below severe limits, and the severe weather threat remains limited. But as we've kind of alluded to, one of our strongest storms down here approaching Kosciuszko now has a warning with it as well. And this has been last 30, 40 minutes, easily one of our strongest thunderstorms that we've been tracking. We'll go to our camera in Kosciuszko to get a look at it as well, but a severe thunderstorm warning for folks here in Itala County until 6:45. So to answer the person that's been extremely persistent about Columbus and any threat that they have there. So it is entirely possible that some of these thunderstorms redevelop and we once again have more hail, wind, and maybe a very limited tornado threat with these. So is your threat over in Columbus? No. Is your threat imminent? Next hour? No. It's probably a couple hours away. And, everyone in between, it's the same story. If I'm saying that about Columbus, I'd say same story, Eupora or Houston or Bruce or Grenada, or even honestly up here to Water Valley. It's not inconceivable that some of these thunderstorms could strengthen and produce some hail. But the tornado threat was not high to begin with and is not high now. In saying that, North Mississippi Storm Chasers posting some pictures here in our back and forth chat. Some hail and wind damage from 7 miles southeast of Pickens from Stan with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. Let's show you what he sent in the last couple minutes here again of just, trees kind of shredded by some of the hail there southeast of Pickens. That would have been from the first of those storms that moved through with the big hail, not the one that we're tracking right now. So appreciate Stan with that shot. We'll come back to it in a brief second here. So that would probably be this first thunderstorm here that moved through. So Stan catching the damage with that storm that's kind of north of the Carthage area that's prompted the severe thunderstorm warning until 6:45 for Leake County. Also have kind of a twin warning up to the north for the storm just north of that. But that would be this storm here and the big hail that produced. And maybe it wasn't as much big hail as just a ton of small hail with that. But back here from Goodman, back to Chula, these storms are starting to mature. It's very reasonable the ones just north of that could as well over the next little bit. I had a 3-body scatter spike. I didn't see that until just now, which is a sign of, again, some very large hail potential on this. So this easily could continue to fill in with more thunderstorms in the next few hours here. So are you done? No. I would say in Columbus or Starkville or West Point, we're still probably going to have some storms ahead as we go into for some of those locations. Let's get a storm track on our storm down here closer to Kosciuszko, and then we'll kind of re-rack and get ready to do our 6 o'clock broadcast here in a minute. Gabe's going to show a couple pictures before that so that we can get that all ready to go. But this does have some large hail potential. That's one of what I'm going to track. There'll be some rainfall before this for folks there in Kosciuszko. But Gabe's going to go through some of those cities here. Actually, I'm going to go through the cities on this because I'm going to have to have links to be able to do that. But severe thunderstorm warning, as you can see there, for Atala County until 6:45. Kosciuszko for you about 6:17, the time where that could arrive. And so we'll be watching our camera there in Kosciuszko, obviously, very closely to see how these storms continue to evolve over the course of the next couple of hours. But Kosciuszko still watching and waiting as these storms approach your area. And appreciate our North Mississippi storm chasers. If you don't hear me say that enough, without them, it'd be difficult for us to pull off a lot of what we do. And we appreciate them for being our partners, both in the field and with this camera network putting up across North Mississippi here. Okay, now we're bringing in Gabe. He's looking at some of what you have sent in, some whether it's now or before, some of those hail shots. And again, you had a new one come in a few minutes ago, right, Gabe?
Yeah, so we're just basically getting in those pictures across North Mississippi of the gloomy, cloudy skies in Grenada. But we also are getting a pretty scary look, all things considered, that green showing up there towards Boonville. This was attached to that severe thunderstorm warning as that moved from Boonville more into Corinth. And luckily here on the windshield, but of course that strength remains in place and more strength is still in the area, or should I say more unstable air is still in the area as the storms begin to fire up once again. Now this was a shot out of Vaughn, Mississippi, and this was from Lorian and Will. And as you can see right there, that is a pretty decent sized hailstone. That's upwards of about 1.5 to 2 inches there falling. And so that's where we talk about damaging hail. That's that potential that we're getting. So down there towards Vaughn, Mississippi was where that report did come in from. So appreciate those reports. That one, actually, can I go towards the north? Let me. That one right there, that's a very large stone. That's easily 2 inches, I would say. Of course, hand is more of a general rule of thumb, but coins, things like that can help us understand the size a little bit better. But appreciate all of those reports that do come in. Continue to update those right here on the Mississippi Live Weather app. So if you do have a report, submit those to us, and we will be glad to showcase those in our broadcast tonight and throughout the rest of time as those reports do come in. So that's the best way to report your damage, report any hail reports, and even send in pictures of the sky to let us know what you're seeing there on the ground. So as we continue to look behind the scenes, we're awaiting some of those reports. One of the things that we can look at right now is that, let me see if this will hopefully not reset it, the latest in regards to our sounding. So I have to drag this over. So as we look at some of those wind bars, we're still getting that
coming up here in a minute. We need to probably launch the 6 o'clock newscast.
I just didn't know if you're ready yet.
Okay. Yeah, no. So let's go ahead and we'll start Mississippi Live.
Give the gift of a delicious burger from Bulldog Burger, a soup and sandwich from Sweet Pepper's Deli, appetizers and cocktails from The Grill, or even a wood-fired steak from Harvey's. Choice is the perfect gift. An all-in-one gift card from Eat With Us.
When C.K. Little opened his doors in downtown Corinth nearly 80 years ago, his plan was simple: deliver excellent service and exceed expectations. That's why we say, Little goes.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
2 severe thunderstorm warnings that we're tracking at 6 o'clock. At this point, we expect that one still has the potential to produce some damaging hail. The other one, I'm not convinced on exactly what it has the potential to produce, but we are going to probably redevelop some isolated thunderstorms over the course of the next few hours here. We talked about this. I don't know, Gabe, if we ever updated. Doesn't look like we ever updated the threat graphic here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the fly here for a moment so that we make these adjustments. First off, some damaging, damaging wind gusts. On that, I would say isolated tornadoes possible, and possibly some hail in excess of 1.5 inches. But the reality is that the confidence in these is the main thing that's been reduced going into this evening, more than even necessarily the impacts themselves. So confidence in us seeing, I'm going to keep the hail threat, the hail confidence level at 2. Every other one, we're going to make an adjustment. So give me a moment here. I'm going to take this and we're going to re-rack this specific graphic here for a moment to get that update for you for this evening. So we've reduced that tornado threat down. Again, level 1 confidence at this point here, despite the fact that we have tornado watches in place. Damaging wind gusts a possibility out of some of the strongest of these storms. And I left that hail size in excess of US 82. In particular, this thunderstorm that's prompted the severe thunderstorm warning for Atala County in effect until 6:45 p.m. It's over top of Salis now. There has been a little bit of a split going on here, and at least with where this precipitation core is. And so that's what we're watching about 6:17 for you in the Kosciuszko area. We need to loop this and we need to slow loop this, and this can tell us some stuff about some stuff. What I'm trying to see is if this is breaking apart. See how that front part's breaking away? Let's watch this again. If we look three-dimensionally on this and that's breaking apart, that increases my concern that maybe this could be one of those rare ones that tries to produce a tornado. Let's look 3D on this. Again, we're a long ways away from that happening, but that's one of the signs here that maybe something could be changing. So if this kind of maintains the same height, and this is a splitting storm, that would be certainly an interesting perspective on it. That's, I guess, the what kindest way I can put that, right? If you read between the lines on that. See, I can kind of sort of see that splitting. Not really. Let's make this again a 15-minute loop, let's just say. Yeah, it looks like 2 separate ones more on that there. Even before. So I don't know if this is truly splitting or if this was kind of 2 cells to begin with that kind of looked like they had merged. Okay, that's good. That's what I want to see. But still, I'd say some large hail potential. The main reason why this warning has been issued with that there. Let's go ahead and again track that toward the east. And I would say we've the Kosciuszko. The concern is that we've developed other thunderstorms behind this. This Chula storm is not that far away from prompting a severe, and there are other thunderstorms back behind that. We'll check out our camera in Kosciuszko, and then we're going to fly up close to Iuka. So as we're looking at some of the storms up that direction there with a severe thunderstorm warning continuing at Tishomingo County. So we'll start with Kosciuszko here for a moment. And again, the heavy rainfall moving closer, the dark side there, the warning in effect there for Locato County until 6:45, about 15 minutes or so before that moves in there, but some rain drops are all some hail ahead of this bit. So we'll see, but lightning on the increase. I do want to mention in our discussion back and forth with the National Weather Service, one of the things that they mentioned, the National Weather Service in Jackson in particular, is the event is not over. Instability will recover in the wake of the current storm. That means fuel is going to come back. We get the active rainfall out of here. And so that is going, then back into Texas and produce the storms. As we talked for me to look at this week, Oklahoma every day, the last watch. Thing a lot more there, though, in Tishomingo County up in Iuka at this point, as the camera there showing the thunderstorms moving into town. And we are partners with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers on our entire camera network here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to bring the camera up just a smidgen higher. Give me a moment to kind of do that, see if I can pan it up just a little bit as we're kind of looking back in a westerly direction. Might pan it a little bit back to the north as well. So that is that storm kind of moving into Iuka at this point in time. We're going to come back to this camera in mere moments, so stick with us. 68 degrees current temperature there, winds at about 20 miles per hour or so. And we show that, again, looking from Jackson, pretty much right over top of Iuka. Let's bring it back into Monroe County storm, and that's, yeah, pretty much coming right through Iuka with the strongest just a little bit south. So I think part of what's doing that is some of this precipitation that we're seeing there is kind of evaporating before it gets down to ground level. And again, a lot of lightning, and there's been plenty of gusty winds with all of these storms. One more shot back there to Iuka to get a look at it. And I really do want to flip this around a little bit more to the east. So give me a moment to kind of look, and we'll kind of track this. We'll kind of look north on this as we kind of swing this around toward the east. Looking back again to some of the rainfall with that there. Getting a lot of dark clouds all, associated with there. And the strongest part of this back to the east, by the way, I should address, when you see clouds like what you see, maybe you can't see it because that line's coming right through it. And maybe it's just a better contrast on my screen. Drag that out of the way. But these kind of clouds that look like they're sort of floating up there, that is not something that concerns us here. That is just the moisture, the transpiration from the trees. There is nothing of concern with that. In my mind, there's nothing that we have to worry about there, but that's one of those scary looking sort of clouds that we can from time to time get. Back here toward, again, there's the lightning as soon as we go away from the camera there. Oxford, another batch of showers and thunderstorms moving in there using our camera with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. No warnings for the Oxford area. Let's pull up our Oxford camera. Let's check the angle these are moving. Again, this kind of looking underneath some of the heavier rainfall there, looking more east and southeast. So I'm going to swing this around back toward our storm, and it's going to look a lot different here in about 2 seconds as we swing it the opposite way. Again, that's looking back into the rainfall, so not a lot to be visible and see as we look. I'm going to swing this back a little more north through kind of the leading edge of that. So just heavy rainfall. That's all we're seeing out of this. Not seeing any hail based on that perspective. And I appreciate our friends over at Phoenix Building Solutions for being our partner there on our camera network there in the Oxford area. We're going to look from a slightly farther distance away in Pontotoc. Pontotoc. I have an idea here. We'll deal with that here in a little later. I have an idea on how to make this going between cameras thing a little easier. Look back more northwest, and there's that storm from Oxford. The funny thing is, you can actually probably see it a little better from this camera. The other one's a little bit too close. Yeah, there's low-hanging stuff, but none of this looks too terribly bad. So this will be a good perspective to check on this to see how that continues to develop in about the next 20, 25 minutes or so. By the way, they have rated, Gabe, that hail at 3 inches on that hail there, between 2 and 3 inches in diameter on that Vaughn hailstone that you saw at the beginning of this broadcast a moment ago there. So back over on the overall perspective here, let's kind of look again at the hour-by-hour forecast. We've talked about the severe threats over the first 12 hours. A little bit of a lull as far as storms are concerned at this exact moment. That will probably pick back up as we go in the next few hours, as we kind of are able to generate the next batch of thunderstorms. Remember, we were saying, prove it to us. Well, storms are developing. It's proved it. That's good enough. But most of those storms will be below severe limits. There will be some that do strengthen enough to produce large hail. And tornadoes, unfortunately, are not off the table yet. It's not a big drop in temperatures from now to tomorrow morning. And we will have additional storm development possible tomorrow. Looking here, most of us under those blue counties that you see there are under tornado watches, all those tornado watches until 10 p.m. tonight. We'll bring it to the latest new severe thunderstorm warning up closer to Tennessee state line. More on that here in a moment. Let's look at the wide shot. Look back toward the wide shot. If we look back here toward Oklahoma, you can barely see it behind the low pressure center in the front we have here, but those are the things that are driving it and causing it. And so this batch of storms there is going to head east and eventually can make its way into our area once again as well. So more severe thunderstorms possible with this evening. Most of these thunderstorms we see kind of developing here across North Mississippi. If we see something, hail would be the thing. And And in many cases, it's going to be hail that's probably pea size or smaller, but it remains possible we could have some hailstones larger than that. Let's look at that severe thunderstorm warning, and then we'll kind of progress through and look at futurecast, kind of an overview, and then we'll dig into future storm rotation, all that sorts of stuff here in a minute. So let's look at that storm near Holly Springs. How many times have we said Holly Springs in the last 24 hours? I feel like a lot. Severe thunderstorm warning issued there for Marshall, Benton, Tippah counties, that in effect there until 7 p.m. Let's see, they do clip Alcorn County with that one as well for the potential for this to produce some hail as it moves eastward. I'm checking to see if we have any official reports on this. No official reports on this one yet, but the hail potential is there. I'll check our True Shield Roofing hail swath graphic, and I don't see any on that yet. But going from Memphis, I see maybe just a little bit more. So the possibility of hail probably increasing just a little bit on this. Yeah, just in the last couple minutes starting to increase a little bit. Let's check the wind just to make sure, because that is kind of by itself. First time we're looking at it, make sure that it's not going to do something silly. And all our wind looks at this. Maybe some broad rotation, but ultimately it's a hail-producing thunderstorm as that moves more toward Ripley and toward the east. Not a lot of lightning on that. We will see. And then more storms out there west of Forest City, Arkansas. So this is really the developmental zone where storms are going to become more likely over the next few hours. So we'll talk more about that warning here in a minute. Let's get through at least an overview of Futurecast. And so looking at where Futurecast has those storms now, pretty close on its positioning, definitely breaks out a lot more over the next few hours. So again, unfortunately, we're not done. But the big thing you need to know is most of these storms will not be tornado-producing thunderstorms. The vast majority of these will not. Maybe one out of this whole cluster could produce a tornado. The damaging wind here, that's where that most significant wind is a possibility. If one of these little bands moves in like that's depicting there, I still think that's a little fast. The storms back out there in Texas have just been doing their own thing, having a good time, relaxing, whatever you want to say, producing bad weather for them, but they've just not been moving particularly fast toward us. So we will continue to have, you'll notice, at least isolated thunderstorms overnight. So yes, if you're one of those people always a little jittery when it thunders, unfortunately, we've got kind of a long night ahead as far as that is concerned. And that's the reason why we recommend Mississippi Live Weather Call. It is that personalized alert that will let you know if you're in the danger zone. It'll call you if there's tornado warnings. It'll call you back if tornadoes are confirmed to be occurring. It'll call you if there's damaging wind or large hail that have been warned on by the National Weather Service, and it'll call you if there's major flash flooding. I say call, 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 because the word call, which emphasized there, is a lot different than all these messages that I just keep muting and ignoring, like sometimes including when it's even Gabe messaging me from time to time to let me know what's going on. We're going to have more looking at Futurecast and the rotation potential out of these storms that we're tracking, the developing right now, coming up right after this on Mississippi Live Weather at 6.
Room to Room's birthday party is going on now. Come celebrate with us. Thousands of dollars in free gifts, cash, spa treatments, shopping sprees, and even a chance to win your entire purchase free. It's a celebration you don't want to miss, and there's no party like a Room to Room party.
How do you know if your roofer is actually telling you the truth or just trying to sell you something you don't need? I'm Chris with Absolute Restoration. When we come out, we don't tell you what's wrong. We show you with photos, videos, and documentation. You'll see exactly what we see so you can make your own decision. And we back our work with a 50-year warranty and a 25-year algae warranty. Plus, no cost upgrades with 0% financing and no payment for 6 months.
We can see the low end. We're going to have a good shot at that as it approaches the Ryanzi area. Tornado warning now issued. We'll do a push alert behind the scenes for folks here, up here in Alcorn County. Rotation on this thunderstorm increasing to the point back into Tippah County as well, where the National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning for your locations. This portion of Mississippi Live Weather is presented by Little's Jewelers.
Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lobhon.
Okay, I want to show you a 7-day forecast before we kind of get going here. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. Let's get the overview here of the next few days, and then let's get back to where storms are strong and what we're expecting from here. First off, tomorrow, storms possible early pre-dawn and then late in the day. The late in the day storms could be strong to severe south of US 82 in particular, where we're looking at for that potential. That percentage might need to come up a little bit more. As we look toward Thursday, again, southern portion of the area, some strong to severe thunderstorms possible. A front that's going to bring the storms in tonight gets stalled a little bit south of us and continues to kind of activate some thunderstorms down that way. Thursday, Friday, we're at 50% on that coverage of rain and storms. Another chance of maybe a few stronger thunderstorms could be possible. We're, again, not high confidence on this. Fuel is not over the top. Saturday, system exiting. And by Sunday, no more Matt Lopon. No, you're not going to see a single. You'll get alerts from Caleb doing his thing over the course of this weekend, but not going to be seeing me this weekend. The severe weather chances are out of here, and yeah, with that 43, it's not inconceivable. Somebody way up north has a little bit of frost. That's probably not a widespread thing. That's hopefully not an anybody thing, but 40s. It's not impossible to get that. So that's kind of your overview here. Just like this is your overview on your school day forecast for tomorrow. Drop-off temperature 65, 74 by lunch, last bell 77. There will be some thunderstorms against South US 82, possibly strong to severe. And appreciate IMPC, our sponsors, on our school day forecast. So this is a look at our rotation track. You saw there for a second some pretty decent rotation tracks possible over the next 12 hours or so. Let's look at that in more depth and in more detail. Now, our Futurecast here, which we show this with, does an okay job on showing where storms are developing now, but it has a lot more thunderstorms the next couple hours. Now, what it tries to depict, 8, 9 o'clock, as this big cluster really matures, and it might be a little slow on that there, that some of these could still potentially produce a little bit of rotation. Now, notice how it gets a much brighter rotation track out of some of these as we head toward, say, 9 to 10 o'clock. When we get this many rotation tracks all next to each other, that tells me, yes, you've got spin and thunderstorms. They're really spinning around there. Let me get my spin correct. They're really spinning. But when you have this many that are spinning, typically you don't have that big one that's doing big things. So it's not impossible. We could still have some tornado warnings from this tonight, and that one of these thunderstorms could kick out strong wind. I do think that this has strong wind potential. That's probably what the storm rotation here is depicting more than anything else, is some wind damage potential out of a line that moves through later on this evening. You notice as we get past midnight, it even has a few of these storms trying to have some weak rotation up here as we head well after midnight as well. I think, just kind of looking at that, my thoughts, I would say hail would be the main factor if we see those. Again, non-zero tornado threat. That's why we talk about weather calls. Back it up. Back it up. So here are our thunder. Let's check where the storms are right now and go back and forth on that. I think that's kind of a worthwhile gesture to verify the model for a moment. Let's bring it back to where it is now. And we're going to take it over here and give me a moment to kind of get this all aligned. And then we need to get back up to that our 2 severe storms that we have. As we back it on up here and we look at kind of the combined radar mosaic, you can see those thunderstorms back out there into western Arkansas. So let's compare that to where the model is showing things should be now. It's going to go back and forth. That positioning is not bad. And Gabe would argue correctly, that, okay, sure, the first hour of the model is okay. We expect it to be. It should hot start. What does it do? If it immediately kills off of these storms, we know that it's probably not paying attention. It's like if you have a showrunner that, immediately kills off your favorite character, it's like, you don't know what you're doing, clearly. And so that batch of storms there holds together. And so if it picks up some speed and have to pick up some speed, that could still be some wind damage out here. Greenville, Kosciuszko, south of Grenada, you're in the path. I would say this is the highest confidence path if we're going to see some damaging storms tonight. Last 2 or 3 days, those have been the spots where it has shown it. So I do think the model's doing an okay job of that. Going back and double checking up here in the northern part of Arkansas, and then the folks in between here, as you can see between really Little Rock there and Senatobia, where that's popping on the map. How is that behaving versus where the model is producing storms right now? Yeah, and typically, by the way, what we're doing here is the kind of stuff that I would do off-air prepping for the show. There's just been no off-air time to prep for the show. That's why we're doing it just live on air as we go. I think it's doing okay with those storms. I think it has grasped appropriately the fact that we're just going to have a bunch of thunderstorms continue to kind of pop up, maybe a little farther east than what this is indicating here, and that some of those storms could from time to time have some rotation with them. So I think that's a decent takeaway. I think that's also shown that there's too many thunderstorms for most of that to be severe, and I would say certainly the southern half of the area, the most likely spots to have some issues with that. So that is, again, looking at storm rotation there. Now let's come back to real time here for a moment so that we can make sure that we're kind of understanding exactly what's happening right now. And you can join the conversation, as many of you have, with our chat ongoing on Facebook and YouTube. Someone saying, tuning in from Iuka, in the clear now. Let's look at that. Your warning looks like we have has been canceled, as that has moved out of Tishmingo County. Let's check our camera up there to see how things are behaving with that at this moment. And looking up here, looking fine in Iuka. In fact, you can see based on the glossy, whatever that is in the tower, that that now we have the sun that has kind of shown up there, at least in a limited fashion, to where it's at least somewhat sunny there. So we'll have to swing the camera back around to the west, because there will be another batch to the west of you. So give me a moment to do just that as we're looking back toward what is a severe thunderstorm warning in the southern, moving toward Alcorn County. So yeah, looking back into that storm, there's briefly the sun. And then again, more low-hanging clouds there. Same thing that we're seeing up here in southern Alcorn County near the Hinkle area. Notice these clouds continue moving pretty fast from south to north. That's left to right here, I believe would be south to north. Make sure I've got that pointed the right direction there in Rienzi. PQR. I think sometimes God laughs that I still have to say the ABC song to get my directions right on this. Yeah, we're still looking back toward the storms kind of approaching from the west. So we do have that the correct angle as that moves in. Of course, this location, as you can see there, is at the edge of the severe thunderstorm warning as those storms continue to kind of move their way in from the west. Let's go back and check our camera there in Oxford, and then we're going to hit Pontotoc, both which we've been kind of watching some of these storms with as well. Again, Oxford is not under a severe thunderstorm warning. We've had the heavy rainfall from time to time, some of these little storms popping up around our Phoenix Building Solutions camera there, though. Again, no heavy, no warnings for those locations at this point. Looking back from the east toward the west there into some of those showers and storms, just kind of dark, low-hanging stuff. No rotation. Nothing significant that I can see at this time here. So let's come back in and look at our latest scans on those storms up near the Tennessee state line. We're up here into Benton County, where this is strongest. And looking at this, I don't really know whether or not this is producing severe weather. I think, as you can see, looking at that hail swath there, and I'll reposition this for a moment, and we'll put this into play, and we'll make this a 30-minute loop. You look at that hail swath, watch how it just kind of cuts off about 20 after. And maybe we're just still awaiting the latest scan on the processing of that to come in. But if I go back to where the heaviest part is on radar, those storms are a little farther east than that. So I don't know if this is producing any severe hail anymore. I think this is probably a little below severe limits at this time. So I find it difficult to believe that this is producing damaging weather at this moment in time. So could it at some point, take that next step? I mean, that certainly remains possible. But a new warning coming out for Louisville, because looking from Memphis all the way south, these storms down here around Kosciuszko are rather hefty, as old John used to say. Let's look at the radar site. We're going to look from Columbus here. Again, pretty hefty. Let's check our camera down there in Kosciuszko. And we need to check our camera down south in Edinburgh as well. Kosciuszko, yeah, in it, as you'll notice, There's the heaviest rainfall and hail and whatever is falling there on the left-hand part of the screen, just kind of behind my head. I don't have a great view of that. Talbot County, of course, under that severe thunderstorm warning until 6:45. It's reasonable based on what we're looking at here that if that hasn't crossed out of the county, they might have to extend that just a little bit. I don't know if it gets quite out of Talbot County by that point in time. Let's go south to Edinburgh, excuse me. I do listen. That's one I'm working on from the last event. Edinburgh there, and Winston, Neshoba, as well as Leake counties, all under severe thunderstorm warnings. And we mentioned Talbot County a moment ago. So kind of in some of the heavier rainfall and whatever hail. I can't really see any hail out of that at this point. Coming in 72 degrees there in Edinburgh. Of course, based on where that location is, basically right there on the Leake and Neshoba County line. Potential for some large hail out of this thunderstorm as well. Some of the stronger storms that we do have are these storms that we have down here that we're looking at. Apologize. Apparently, I clicked on show prep instead of that. Let's come back to those storms. So these are some of our stronger thunderstorms. We'll look at our True Shield hail track on this. As you might imagine, we're going to get a more significant swath depicted there of likely hail. And we'll change the site down to Jackson. I think that'll have kind of a closer look on some of this on the hail threat there. I mean, both those with some hefty hail for sure, Gabe. Have you been getting any reports out of these storms down there at this time?
This is the only shot that I was going to pull up. I guess we got a couple of pictures. Location still trying to be determined. This is from Golden. This photo right there of just, those wispy clouds like we saw a moment ago. But it might be some of those mammatus clouds potentially forming towards Farmington, getting a good look right there. It zoomed in a little bit too much on that right there. Let me see if I can zoom it out. Might be too much. There we go. So there's some of those, what looks to be mammatus clouds there towards Farmington. So there is still some buoyancy to the atmosphere.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that the Weather Service was also hinting strongly at, is that we are not at the end of this event. Especially, you can see with these storms kind of redeveloping back here. Definitely not at the end of where things go with this, because that storm near Carthage. I mean, those storms, they're rotating thunderstorms. Let's be clear. And this one finally now, I'll bring it back over here on kind of the digital room-to-room weather center for a moment. That storm near Carthage, that does have some rotation with it. You can see it even has the little hook echo on the backside. Now, it's going to be mainly a hail-producing thunderstorm, but this is where, again, that non-zero tornado threat on some of these comes in, if they can do this sort of thing. Let's go and speed this loop up here just a little bit more. So let's get some storm tracks on these storms for you as well. So based on about 40 miles per hour, which is what we've been going, we probably should double check to make sure these are still going 40 miles per hour. So I have that toward Philadelphia. We'd be looking for you at about 6:47. This is a severe thunderstorm warning for you in Neshoba County until 7:30. Large hail potential out of this. Zaffer Hill, we're looking for you at 6:37. Current time is 6:30 on the button. Good Hope, we're 6:46 there. Fairview, 6:43. And eventually Okobla. Oh, man. That one I did not learn. I think it's Okobla at 6:56. Bloomfield at 6:57. I promise at some point we'll get there on some of the names. These storms up here near Kosciuszko, there are two storms there. I was looking at them separating earlier. Still two storms. The second of those is the one that has more hail potential. Smyrna, we're looking at that for you at 6:35. We're looking about 6:40 for you there in Patterson Center at 6:42, 6:45 there in Zama. Vowel at 6:51, Alice at 6:55, and Hines at 6:55. Doppler radar indicated hail that could be fairly large. When we do our threats and kind of evaluate the different kind of peak potential on what these storms are capable of, you see the dark purple on both these, meaning the scale's like, hey, I mean, in the worst case scenario, 3+ inch hail is possible, and we have had a report of that out of this thunderstorm. If you go back behind it just a little ways out here, that's what some of the reports are, like this one there. I mean, that's a report of 1.5 inch size hail, leaves and debris all over the roadway. I believe that was from our Standora with the North Mississippi Storm Chasers there. Looking at hail reports back behind it between 2 and 3 inches near the Vaughn community. The picture that Gabe started off this broadcast with, 1.5 inch size hail there. Again, just a little northwest of that location. So we've had some pretty large hail out of these storms. So 3 inches, while extreme, is not out of the realm of possibility, because where we had some of those big hail reports, I mean, that's when we had some of the darkest purple for the largest hail showing up. So I would say still a reasonable expectation that perhaps that's what you could be seeing moving toward you there in the Neshoba County area in Philadelphia, where you're under severe thunderstorm warning till 7:30. And then for folks that yet to see any severe weather today in Winston County, we have that one up north coming toward you there. Zama, Patterson, East Macedonia, Vowel, a severe thunderstorm warning for you. That is probably going to stay primarily south, that specific one, south of Louisville. But there's additional thunderstorms kind of developing back. We have some kind of boundary that these are developing back on. And that one farther back to the north and west there also has some hail potential back up there west of Vaden. Maybe 1.5 inch peak hail size on that one. That could be the next one that starts producing a little hail swath. We're putting that as possible versus the others that code in as probable because of what they are producing at this time. So as we kind of zoom things on out and kind of reset things here, I'm going to take a brief break here for a moment, and Mississippi Live Weather continue right after this.
At First Choice Bank, we know you can't always make it before the bank closes. With our integrated teller, you can talk to a live person as late as 7 p.m. on weekdays and noon on Saturdays. It's not just an ATM, it's an ITM. First Choice Bank, your choice for banking.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham, and Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you.
Welcome back to Mississippi Live at 6. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon alongside our meteorologist Gabe Maynor. Do want to mention the 15th anniversary of the tornadoes that hit back in 2011 yesterday. Obviously, today is the 12th anniversary of the deadly EF4 tornado that moved through Louisville and the tornado that moved through Tupelo, Columbus that day as well. Thoughts and prayers with, I know that this week is hard as far as significant tornado anniversaries go here across North Mississippi. So our thoughts with those folks that, struggle looking back and struggle with severe weather, and some of our most ardent fans because of the fear that goes along with that. I know some of you are on there. So like Lonnie in Louisville wanting to know, I completely get why you're like, I just need to know about Louisville. I just need to know what this is going to do. Need to be clear about this like we were clear yesterday. Any storms we see today, hail is going to be the main factor based on what we're looking at now. Some damaging winds if we can get an organized complex. Tornadoes are not impossible, but they are not the main likelihood out of these thunderstorms. Again, we have this kind of complex here of storms moving eastward, some rotation in them. And for Louisville specifically, when we look at this storm here, I saw that question just a moment ago. This is probably going to stay south. There's other thunderstorms that will move over you, but the biggest hail by the time this moves through is going to be East Macedonia, Noxapater, going to be more locations like that. And obviously we know that it wasn't just Louisville that got hit by that storm as that ripped there through Winston County 12 years ago today. So some folks here obviously in the path of that as well that had some issues, some significant issues that day. I'm going to bring in our meteorologist Gabe Maynor here for a moment, tracking these thunderstorms, continuing to kind of assess as they expand in coverage.
Exactly, Matt. And yes, thoughts and prayers for those that were affected 12 years ago, including my wife. So she tells me everything that happened. And so I just continue to think about you guys every single time that April 28th passes. So definitely continue to pray for those that were affected. And as those recovery efforts are still ongoing, fortunately tonight, Not looking like a tornado threat imminent there in Winston County, just looking like some large hail, which can still be impactful. Patterson there by 640, we're 644 there towards the Zane community. And as we get the overall outlook there, it continues to be this boundary that develops that we're going to be tracking. And this is the main batch that we're watching, but some additional development right up along I-55 towards the Hernando, Oxford, even up there towards Batesville area as well. That works its way to the east into the rest of North Mississippi once again. Now, one of the things that I was reading with the National Weather Service was the fact that you would think the threat is over. Not with this setup. There's still a good amount of unstable air that this will work to take advantage of. As you can see right here, as that boundary continues to go and develop more storms. And so that's what we're watching, is that redevelopment of thunderstorms, getting that further towards the south because that's more of a direct source of moisture, but additional development out there towards Arkansas, getting that as well. Let me track these down south, and then I want to go up to Memphis to look at those storms in a little bit more detail. So let's go right there on that hail core there in Kosciuszko, and we're going to keep it at about 35 miles an hour is what I was looking at behind the scenes. And as we drag this out, and this is going to continue to move in that, actually it looks like there might be two sections. Let me pull up that hail swath. Yeah, so what we're having right here, let me go specifically on this storm. Oh, and don't do a track on that. Let me go specifically on this storm, and let me bring it back to our reflectivity. So it looks like we're getting an additional core to develop right there towards the center community, whereas the Dodds and Knox area looks more significant for some of that large hail. So I'm going to do a track right along the leading edge of this, understanding that there could be a pretty large hail core developing right within this entire cell. So we're going to start in Vowel and work our way towards the east there at about 35 miles an hour, closer to Noxapater. So Vowel 640, we're seeing that right there. Current time 638, so that's here in the next minute or two. 652 Plattsburgh, Liberty 654, Stallo 701, Height 704. And as we continue to move off there towards the east, we're seeing Noxapater by about 704 as well. Now this is where we're seeing some large hail attached to this, and let me make sure on the hail swath. I mean, we're talking probable, that's for sure. So probable meaning that we're getting upwards of 1 inch or more, and that's what prompts those severe thunderstorm warnings. And that latest one now being extended until 7:30 through Winston County. One thing I want to look at though is a cross section, and one of the ways that we can do that is look at our 3D mode. And as I do that here real quick, I'm not going to do this to every storm, but I want to do it on this one because it does have that severe warning prompted for it. So let's get right there, drag that over, and we're going to try and cut into this storm. And let me see how high those DBZs do get. So right there, there's where the largest hail is continuing to develop, and it does look like we still have those updrafts carrying that hail a bit more back on a loop, and make sure this loops on through. And let's see how this has progressed into the area. So does look like we're still getting it potentially falling out. Some of those downdrafts might be pulling down some of those stones. So Smyrna, center, potentially getting some of those larger stones near you. I'm awaiting those reports as we get further into the 6:45 hour to see what actually falls there to the surface. But as you can see, that's not the only hail core that we are watching. If we move up there towards the north and west, towards Hesterville, even a few of those hail cores developing there towards northwestern, let's see, that would be northwestern Itala County, and right there towards Holmes County as well. So multiple areas that we were watching, but definitely the largest towards Knox, Patterson, and Smyrna. So let's clear that off, and let's go back on our two-dimensional mode so that way we can bring it back more easier to look at. So as we look right there, yeah, definitely showing up with those DBZs. One other thing I want to look at is our velocity, our wind signatures, and doesn't look like we're seeing any rotation, any immediate concerning rotation for that matter. So that's definitely a fortunate thing, but the hail core continues to be large. I want to work our way up the line to look at what's happening up there towards Arkansas, because additional development is already taking place. We see that with our Memphis radar site, where a high output of lightning right here towards Wynne, Arkansas once again. Now let me tell you, this was an area that had thunderstorms earlier on this afternoon. Shows you that this atmosphere is not worked over just yet. So those will continue to develop right along I-40 there towards Memphis, and potentially as that does branch off there towards the south, we might see that move more towards Tunica, Tate, DeSoto County here in the next hour or so. So let's drag that out. We're going to keep that same speed of about 35 miles an hour and drag that out closer to North Mississippi. So I'm going to have to clear that off. Let me drag right across this leading edge. And we're going to keep it moving at about 35 miles an hour. I'm going to make sure to take it through at least we could give it a little bit of a southern tilt. So right there. And let me make sure this extends further in North Mississippi because it's the next batch that we're going to be watching for. And right there, that gives enough of a heads up on time. And let me make sure that I have a city out ahead of this that we can use to kind of clear off some of those towns. So this is not one to move. Okay, sweet. Okay, let me adjust this as well to kind of clean up those towns. So there we're getting a look. Caldwell by 649, that's still out there towards Arkansas, but we're getting closer to Germantown by 817. That's up there towards the Tennessee state line. Horn Lake 826, Olive Branch closer to about 840, Rossville 846, Hernando 856, Moscow 857, and then we're into our 9 o'clock show, 913. So this is a threat that will continue into the overnight hours as well. Unfortunately, another nocturnal threat here in North Mississippi, as folks were longing for last night. No one was excited about that, but hopefully, as these do work on through, they remain below severe limits. But there's just enough instability for this to take advantage of. I mean, look out here towards Arkansas. We have multiple tornado warnings in effect to accommodate for some of these stronger thunderstorms that are moving through the area. And as it continues to progress off there towards the east, that potential is here in North Mississippi as well. Fortunately, we're getting already some of that additional development, and as that sun does set, hopefully those storms will work to bring that environment down and lessen our potential later on this evening. But as of right now, not the case, and we continue to get some of those stronger storms up there in the northwest Mississippi area. I want to pay attention to, let me go ahead and do an overview on this cluster, because there's a lot to take in right here. Bruce is what stands out, and I know that we have a shot there. Let me go ahead and take this shot in Pittsburgh, looking towards the north. Hopefully it still is oriented. This is out of Pittsburgh, and trying to look there in the distance. We are continuing to get dew points in the upper 60s, so that is definitely enough. We're getting some of that scud right there, so that's not exactly anything that's overly concerning. A bit of that steamy fog as well, showing that this is still a warm environment, showing that we did have rainfall earlier, and that's starting to evaporate there in Calhoun County. So overall, I'm not seeing anything that stands out as concerning, but definitely does at least show us the environment that these storms are in, and that is going to allow for some of these storms to increase in strength a bit more as well. Let me check behind the scenes for any questions that you guys may have. Louisville time is 6:40. Rain is picking up in Kosciuszko. Let's go ahead and get back down south. I do want to give one track on this storm there in Calhoun County, because that definitely looks like it's developing, and we can actually go closer. Yeah, it looks like it's getting a bit of a hail core there towards Bruce. So let me do a track on this. Let me make sure I have the direction right. We're going to keep that 35 mile an hour track. And I'm able to do right there, 35. So Reed 655, Buckhorn 701, Gershorm by 712, Holka 712, Wallfield by 713 as that continues to move at about 35 miles an hour. If we look at our True Shield Roofing hail swath right here, showing some of that possible potential. So not exactly up to severe weather standards, and even our severe threats not showing all the way up there just yet. But if that increases even a slightest bit more, then we're looking at a more immediate threat for some of that large hail to fall. Down south, I heard folks talking about the rains picking up in Kosciuszko. That's these cells that are developing, and I'll have to swap radar sites here to get a little bit of a closer view. So yes, that is a large hail core right there in Patterson. Hang on one second. Let me make this 3D real quick, and this will be worth your while, because I think this core, it has the potential to drop some, either a large hail or a large quantity of hail. So right there, see that black that's showing up? That's the highest on our DBZs right there. So this is that ice that's forming aloft, and let's go ahead and put a loop on this, because this does look like a new development from what we tracked even a few moments ago. So that might be, so right there you still have the updrafts taking it. I think we're scanned behind right here. But once that does connect, that doesn't have too much longer before that does start to fall out of the storm there towards the Zama, East Macedonia area. And unfortunately going south of southern Winston County right there. So that's where, let's put a new track on this, and we're going to track it right on that leading edge of the hail core. And
I would say the reason like is because the boss top scans haven't rescanned yet. So
Gotcha.
That's why it's separate like that. So when it comes down, it's going to come down a little more. So it's probably falling out right now.
And that does look like, how far south did that warning go? It did go further towards Neshoba County as well, because I do think that this is almost taking a southeastern track, at least a little bit southeastern right there. So let's put a track on that latest scan so that way we make sure we have the latest on that hail. And we're going to keep it at about 35 miles an hour. And I'm going to track it right there. So Zama 648, Alice 659, Plattsburgh 707, and Arlington by 710. So that's going to be moving into our max south coverage area, but definitely want to pay attention to because that has some large hail. If we look at those peak impacts, that's 3+ inches, and I would agree. So that's what we're talking about, either a large quantity or large stones. And as we've already seen there towards Vaughn, that was up to 2 to 3 inches. So we've seen that this atmosphere is capable of it, and definitely is an increasing storm working its way towards southeast Itala County, and it will continue off there towards Neshoba and potentially southern Winston County if it does move a more eastern track. But it does look like it has at least a little bit of a southeastern tilt there to it. That severe thunderstorm warning in effect until 7:30 this evening, and it does include Neshoba and Winston County for this storm in particular. More development down south too towards Neshoba County, and even if we populate in some of those as well, we're getting 3+ inches. So both of these storms are ones to pay attention to, and we're seeing that on our reflectivity mode. I mean, we talked about DBZs, and if you wanted to see what values we're talking about, I mean, 63.5, that is definitely some bright returns right there. And same thing down there towards Philadelphia. And let's do a storm track on Philadelphia as well. Make sure that track looking more directly east compared to, yes, that looks like it has a little bit of a southeastern movement, and that one directly east, at least within that core. So going to that latest scan, dragging out that cone towards Longino. I think I'm saying that correctly. And we are going to go 35 miles an hour. Longino there at 656, Burnside 657, Spring Creek 702, Sandtown 706, Bond 708, North Bend 708, Crossroads 712, Forestdale 712, and Bogachito by 713. So that is what we're watching, and it looks like we do have a new scan coming in. So let's actually make sure we get that latest scan. So those times might be updated at least a little bit. So right there. So there, okay, let's actually retract that. 650 Longino, Spring Creek 656, Sandtown 7 o'clock, Forestdale 705, Crossroads 706, Bogachito there at 707, and 718 for Cleveland. That's going to be eventually making its way across the Neshoba County line here in about, that's the next 30 minutes or so. So gradually working at about 35 miles an hour. Now that is going to have some large hail falling out of it. Let me pull up the chat here behind the scenes to make sure that I don't miss any of those reports of some of those stronger hail, or larger hailstones, I should say. So let's pull up that chat. I'll have that up behind the scenes. And of course, if you have any of your reports as well and want to send those into the Mississippi Live Weather app, we would appreciate that, because that information goes directly to the National Weather Service to where they're able to assess these warnings as needed. Now, I'm already expecting some large hail to be falling out of the Neshoba County storm and southeastern Itala County. So this is definitely the two storms to watch as these work their way through the central Mississippi area. So your reports do matter, and let us know what is what we need to be watching. Your eyes are our eyes on the ground. That was a tough sentence to say. So let's bring it back here for a second and kind of reset things. So I'm meteorologist Gabe Maynor alongside Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. We've been tracking these storms all afternoon, whether it's been the strong wind or whether it's been the strong wind or the large hail. That's what we've been dealing with so far today. And so far, we've stayed void of any of those tornado warnings, and hopefully that continues to remain the case. But if we look at the overall concerns here in North Mississippi, and we kind of clean things up, we see that tornado watch remains in effect across not only the north and central Mississippi area, but even out towards Arkansas and northern Louisiana. Reason why? Still unstable. Still having that fuel to keep these storms going, and that's in place until 10 o'clock, and actually out there towards Arkansas, interesting to note that that's in place until 1 a.m. So they might do an extension, depending on how quick these storms move through Arkansas, of our tornado watch, maybe going up until the AM hours as well, just because this is going to be an overnight threat. But I think what they're doing is seeing what happens in Arkansas, and then we'll carry that over into North Mississippi, depending on what actually verifies out there in the Little Rock coverage area. But focusing on Mississippi for a bit, we're looking at some particular strong storms down there towards Atala, Winston, and Neshoba County. As we look right there, more of those hail cores developing towards Vaden. This would be on the Holmes and Carroll County side of I-55, and then working its way east into Montgomery and Itala County as well. But the storm that we have had eyes on is out there towards Patterson, Zama, and East Macedonia and Powell. That is some very, very strong hail, or very large hail. I keep saying strong hail. Large hail falling there out of the southeast Itala County area. Now, wind-wise, I'm seeing the brightest of returns. That's at least a positive, but let me see. Oh yeah, we do have that camera there. Let's get a look there out of Kosciuszko. This would be looking towards the southeast. So we can see that it would more so be, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, this is looking towards the southeast, and so we'd be needing to look more towards there, at least for that severe thunderstorm warning. But you can see the heavy rainfall that happened as well. Is it towards the southeast looking? Okay.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Okay, so it would be that top left side of your screen where we're getting the back end of that severe thunderstorm warning. And we'll eventually see, as you can see on our radar right there in the bottom left, those storms work back into the Kosciuszko area, and that's where we're getting some of those dark clouds out ahead of those cells. That will eventually lead to some more heavy rainfall. And we're already seeing some of the heavy rainfall there in Itala County, right there in Kosciuszko. So been a pretty active night there, or active afternoon, I should say, and eventually an active evening as well. One thing I want to look at is, so Itala, a public report or storm report of 1.5 inch hailstones, and they're continuing the potential for up to 1.75 inch hailstones. So that's a pretty good sized hailstone. That's what we're talking about, some of the damage potential coming out of this. I mean, we had 2 to 3 inch stones towards Vaughn earlier on, but these have definitely increased in strength, and so some of that potential is still there. I mean, if we look at our probable reports, as that moved right over Patterson and Zama, that's where we're getting some of those probable instead of possible tags on our True Shield Roofing hail swath. And so that's what's letting me know that this is probably going to be some of those larger hailstones, at least reaching the ground. So the latest, we're still getting about 3+ inch hail possible, as has been the case over the last couple of scans. I mean, this has maintained its strength for a last few scans here in southern Itala County, and that'll work its way into, does look like it's heading more southeast into Neshoba County, so we can do an updated storm track on that. Let me turn off, actually, let me actually turn it back on. I want to see what on reflectivity, how this has done. So it looks like it's starting to get another development there on the back side towards Gray that has the potential to maybe form into a decent storm later on. You're getting that purple showing up, showing those brighter DBZs as well. So potentially producing some small hail there as well. So hail continues to be the story down south, south of Highway 82. So let's do a storm track on that. And we're going to focus specifically on the area where the heaviest hail is expected to fall. And as we move that more towards Alice, right along Highway 19, we're going to take it at about 35 miles an hour. And you can see Alice 658. Current time 6:55, so we're 3 minutes away from there. Arlington 7:09, Stallo 7:15, Burnside 7:17, Longino there 7:19, Spring Creek by 7:23. That one out ahead of it was one to watch too, and it does look like it has some of those large hailstones potentially falling as well. Might still be in the developmental phase. So as we put that on a loop, and that has maintained its 3+ inch capabilities. So that probably might have fallen already, but it definitely has a pretty strong tag to it. So let's actually, what I want to do real quick is reassess this by looking 3D at each of these storms, because that's a way that we can see inside the storm, kind of dissect it almost, and see where that hail core lies. So I'm actually going to drag it up to where we can see both of these storms. Clear off right there. Let me see if we can get some of those darker returns. So there you go. So as we see right there, and I might make it a little bit more parallel with the ground right there, those blacks that are returning, that is still some of that hail that's up there in the sky. But right here, probably some of that hail actually reaching the ground towards Alice. That's going to be that large hail falling to the surface. And as we look back there towards Vaden, we're getting some of those large hail returns as well. Let's go ahead and way up the line, as this boundary has been the hail producer of the evening. That's going to be up there towards Liberty Chapel and Ethel. Let's actually get a storm track on that, because that's some strengthening that is new for our Mama Justice Doppler radar. So go back vertical and make sure we have the storm motion right on this as it moves towards the At least the east might have a little bit of that southeast tilt to it as well. So make sure we get that. So that looks like it might be more of an eastern mover. So that as we keep that moving towards the east, more towards Kerr over the next few moments, that's where it's going to have some of that large hail. You can see it right there where that black is showing up. That's our brighter DBZs indicating some of these deepening hail cores. So Kerr, you see right there, 724, like we mentioned just a moment ago. Liberty Chapel, though, 703. Ethel, 705. Bowie's Chapel by 716. McCool, 717. And Rural Hill there by 723. Now, Matt, behind the scenes, do you have any of those reports down there towards Itala County that we may have gotten through the Mississippi Live weather app? That kind of help with what we're seeing right here to know how to assess things here in the next couple of hours as this boundary looks to remain pretty dominant. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything up north, and you can see that we're going to have to swap radar sites first and go to that Monroe County radar site. Still getting some of those brighter returns there, perhaps some large hail. Wind-wise, nothing that stands out as some overly strong gusts. That's why these have remained sub-severe so far, but definitely seeing a large amount of activity. One thing yesterday when we were looking at models was the fact that there was a lot to it. And I told you guys yesterday that that's really beneficial for our area because that means that these cells are going to be competing with each other for energy. And so as this continues to happen, oh, hang on, Asia's saying, Gabe, you're glitching. Is it getting better now? Let me know let's do a test real quick. And I just want to see in the chat, is anyone lagging still? If there is, just let me know and we'll address that here in a second. So one thing, I'll keep talking in case it is okay, but one thing that is a benefit to us, okay, it's good now. See that from Asia. Looks good from Paige. I will take it. That's 2 goods and okay, well, we're getting more. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna keep rocking and rolling. If it gets like that again, send a message and we'll address it. But I appreciate you guys letting me know that in the chat. So a lot of activity up here in North Mississippi is helping prevent our strong development. If it was like yesterday where we had those discrete cells developing and it was able to take advantage of an environment like this, then we'd be looking at a more concerning situation. Not